What the What podcast. It's the podcast where we tell you what's nerdy, what's popping with culture, what's giving us all the nostalgic feels, and what's there to geek out about, past, present, and future. It's all the what's in one place.
All the what's.
That's Eric Creech. We have Kyle Whitley.
That's 2 what's.
And I'm Ashby Brain.
You actually have 3 what's now.
Yes. What the what?
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 Say what?
That was a lot of what's, in fact.
All the
You're
what's.
right.
We were being specific there with every single what. What?
What?
Wow.
Doing my Steve Austin impression.
What?
She doesn't know that one either. What?
What?
You find that funny?
What?
What? Is that humorous? What?
Who's Steve Austin?
I think this. I'm not trying to jump ahead, but that's going to be something like for sure for the YouTube stuff. It's
Okay.
just Ashby's reaction to things that we find are hilarious.
Is he a
and, like,
wrestler?
he is.
Stone Cold.
Stone Cold?
Yes.
Well, you didn't say his whole name. I know who that is.
So
Well, the funny thing about that line, though, he
as
was
the
talking.
wrestler. She's like, "What's he doing?"
He was talking to a wrestler named Hugh Morris. So he's like, "Do you find that funny? What? Is that humorous?"
Don't spoil it for her.
Yeah, I won't be able to react if you tell them
You
all.
can react to it now.
The funny part is me and Eric are just dying laughing. You're like, guys, it's really not that funny.
Right, I'm just going to sit there like, okay, I guess I sort of get
I
it.
guess
you
I
guys
get
are
it.
losing
Ric
it.
Flair made Thanos tap. I
Yes.
don't
Okay,
understand.
I don't get it.
He has hearing problems, I guess. That's not funny. So,
Woo.
yeah. Yay. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yes.
If you haven't, please subscribe to this podcast. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, etc.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
All have us. Make sure to search for What the What Media.
All one word!
Deep dive!
And
No.
please-
That's not how that
That's
works.
not how that sentence
Wow.
finished.
My bad.
And please rate and review us 5 stars.
5.
I was listening to that, and I'm glad that we did not go with the 5 and 1. Or, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
5 ones.
I mean, your math was right, but that's
It didn't.
not
It wouldn't have helped us. At
right.
all.
Exactly.
We've never gotten anything less than a 5-star review.
We probably get like 1 5-star review.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's still
That's
better
one.
than. That's one more than some people have. So.
There's 3 of us here.
Yeah, exactly.
But you don't
We
rate
probably
your own
should. Yeah,
podcast.
we probably should rate our own stuff.
I don't know. I don't know
That's
if
a good question.
That's
Will
like
I
when you're playing in a
rate
band,
the
do you wear your
podcast?
own shirt? Like,
I mean, I would because I'm proud of that
Oh, no.
thing. I mean,
I would.
You're trying to sell that bad boy,
But I'm
so
also
you won't.
that kind of person who wears the band that they're going to see to the
see?
concert, and apparently that's not done.
Is it
so-
not?
no, you're
Yeah,
not supposed
apparently
to.
not supposed to do that.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. You don't do that.
No wonder people just steer away from me.
Right,
Don't
exactly.
know that guy.
Yeah, ooh, that guy. Okay, also go ahead and follow us on Twitter at WTW_media and on Facebook. I'm just going to keep talking over you
That's
guys.
fine.
And Instagram at What the What Media.
All one word.
All one word.
This episode will also be on YouTube.
Yes. Hi,
Yes,
YouTube.
Make sure you subscribe when you see us posting about our YouTube channel. Also, one more thing. If you like this episode or any of the other 54
other episodes. This
other
is episode
episodes
55.
of the What the What podcast, then we have another request. We are trying to grow this show and get more listeners, and we need your help. If you like this show, we would please ask that you share this episode with at least one friend. Tag us on social media if that's where you end up sharing it, and we will give you and the person you share it with a shout out the next time we record. If you share it with every single friend you have on Facebook, we will let you also host this podcast. On today's episode, we are taking it back to your shop. Oh wait, no.
No, we're not. We did that 2 weeks ago. We're not taking it back
on
to your
today's
childhood.
episode-
We're taking it back to a year ago.
We're taking it back to a year ago when this podcast was founded. The year of our Lord, 2019.
In 19.
I tried to start the wave, folks. But
Dun 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 dun.
That's too late now. Too late.
Okay. Wow.
Whatever.
Wow.
We acknowledge the wave didn't happen. It's too
Okay.
late.
Da, 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 da. They say it's your birthday.
So as everyone
Who's
who knows and has listened to this podcast from the beginning, I've always been here, obviously.
Obviously. She has never
Behind
not
the
been
camera.
here.
Never not been here.
Never not been here.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was behind the camera.
She was like the Jiminy Cricket of the early days.
Yes.
It was very hard for her to be quiet
Yes.
during the Disney bracket, where
Yes.
she, instead of just yelling at us, just
She had to type it
Right.
up. Yeah, she had to type
Right.
it in, but she was really yelling at us.
Yes.
How come you didn't advance Brave?
You idiots!
Idiots. What do you mean? You know,
Oh man, I'm so mad about that. Anyway.
I still need to watch Brave.
Yes.
It's good. I watched
Yes.
it literally the week after. I was like, okay, it's a big deal. I better watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you waiting on?
I don't know. Someone
So-
to force me to watch it, apparently.
Okay, so tomorrow,
After
Instead of
Hamilton.
Hamilton,
Brave.
show up after. He's like, well, for some reason, Hamilton just won't play on
It
my
won't play.
television.
I
Oh,
don't
well.
It's right there. Just
I
click
can't
it.
get
No.
it to happen. I
Why do
don't
you
know
keep
what the
clicking
problem
Brave?
is.
Why do you keep clicking? It's right there.
You go over three
No,
more.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work. For those that are listening or watching live, I guess you'll see it's on Monday, but we're having our first family outing together.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a big group.
As a
Yes.
As a
podcast.
family
Yep.
podcast.
That's
yes.
right.
A family.
A family show.
We're going to Ashby's house to watch Hamilton on Disney Plus.
So excited.
Yes.
I literally know zero about it, so whenever y'all were talking about Hamilton and
Same.
Abraham Lincoln, I was like, oh, it's the president. Nice.
Because
So
that's right.
now I know one more thing than I did before. So
Yes.
that's how blind I'm coming into this.
We're not going to miss
Okay.
our shot.
No.
No.
We're getting Chinese food, though.
We are.
So excited. I was thinking about maybe like sweetening the pot as far as like food. And if you guys bring Chinese food, I can go to Sushi Iwa and get some rolls and we can have Chinese food and sushi.
That's insane.
Right?
All right.
Dun, dun, dun.
I'll get the Chinese food. And
Alexander Hamilton.
We'll be like pass out food comas and the guys trying to sing Hamilton.
welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for a cabinet meeting.
Right.
Put your hands together.
Oh my gosh. This is what it means to wild out as an adult. You're like, man, we're going to get so hype on sushi and Alexander Hamilton.
Oh my
The
goodness.
fun part is we're adults and you're like, wait, Chinese and sushi? You can do
You
that.
can do that.
And it's not a buffet.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh my God,
so-
we're doing it. It's happening. I'm doing my best, Michael Scott. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's
Okay,
happening
okay.
now.
Oh my gosh, it's happening.
All right.
Okay, so this week we are celebrating, sort of. I mean, I know we're a few episodes past 50, but we're basically celebrating the anniversary of the podcast.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We are. Because our first episode, I believe, when did we put it out on Wednesday or on a Friday? I mean, we didn't do Monday until a couple of weeks later, but I know it was like late June, and it was Toy Story. Don't go back and listen to it.
No.
It was amazing. What are you talking about?
I don't go back and listen to hardly any of them.
No, I don't either, but because I don't like to hear my voice. But I listened to it
it's
the
now,
one time.
It's now a good time to say I listened to every single one, including the ones I'm on, because I love this.
No,
all
I
the
still
time.
listen
Oh, no,
to
no,
the
no,
ones.
no.
I
I
wanna
still
make
listen
sure-
to them. I just don't re-listen to them.
Oh.
I want to make sure that everything sounded okay. We're like, okay, you sounded dumb. Think
When we
think about your words.
for every
next time.
episode, that the first 20 minutes
You
got
sound
got
dumb.
uploaded and the rest of it didn't.
Yes.
Man.
So I'm glad I listened to it then because I was like, oh, I need to go find the rest of the hour-long show that we did, include it, because otherwise they won't hear our great expositions on Tommy Lee Jones. And
I will say we've gotten better over the year.
yes, we have.
So
We have
not to
definitely
say
gotten
we've
better.
had some dips.
We've had some
probably.
awful episodes in between,
Yes.
episodes 1 and episodes 55. I think anyway,
But
I guess
someday-
we can talk about. I don't know what our questions are. I don't want to
When
get
we're
too
famous someday, we can go back and be like, oh, haha. What's going on?
Remember how bad that first Toy Story episode was?
Let's talk about
I'm
this.
really glad we did that 2 years later.
We'll react to Toy Story.
Yes, react.
So, I actually don't have a lot of questions because I was hoping that this exact thing would happen where I would just sort of ask a question and then you would talk at one another for a little while.
Oh,
So,
That's what we do.
this
That's
is
what we
great.
do.
This is great. Okay, so I've decided in true, contrary fashion,
Yes.
because one of the questions that we asked the listeners is what's your favorite episode?
Okay.
And so we'll get to that for you guys. But
Okay.
Chris,
first,
I about to think about that.
I want to
sure.
ask, and you can't count the first one because you've already talked about how much you hate the first episode. What's your least favorite episode?
Oh.
I've got that one.
I've got one that probably shouldn't count. It was the first draft of our Boy Meets World episode. That's the only.
My brain automatically went to Boy Meets World.
That's the
It's
only
like,
episode that we trashed and redid before we released it because it was so bad the first time.
What went wrong?
It was we literally just we droned on and on about
Well, the thing
season
is,
1 and season 2 and
we
season
hadn't quite
3.
figured out how to
We
talk
didn't really have
about
our
things.
format
Okay.
yet.
So we got started, and I was like, I really like Corey, and I like Topanga, and I like how they work. And Eric's like, that's great. Episode 1 of season 1. Here's this. Episode 2 of season, and it literally went season by season by season.
Like, literally, we finished it. It was like an hour and 20 minutes. Like, there's no way we're not even going to listen back to it. We're just
It was bad enough
now.
that I zoned out and was like, okay, how much longer do we have?
Yeah, it was
And
really
I just was listening
awful.
to Eric talk about the thing. And it's not always it was evenly our faults, but like Eric would talk and I would zone out and be like, man, how many more seasons is left? And then when we were done, I was like, if I hated this as bad
that's
recording
terrible.
it, there's
Like,
no way that
The idea was like I wanted to give a comprehensive view of the show, but that really wasn't entertaining. And, so that's one of the things we had to learn along the way was, sometimes you don't have to go into too much of a deep dive.
Right.
You're
basically just reading IMDb.
Yes.
Or in our case, Wikipedia. But yes.
You're right.
I feel like too, we've learned that with movies as well. Because
Right.
there's a lot of movies that we literally try to explain the entire movie away.
Mhm.
Right.
And I would much rather you just or not even you, but just us hit some high spots. And then if you at home want to listen or watch that movie,
Right.
now you want to go watch it. And
Right.
it's not like, well, I heard this very boring version of it and now I just don't care to see any of it.
Now,
Right.
if I had to pick an episode that made it to air, I would say either the D23 Expo news episode, where we tried to fashion it like Pardon the Interruption on ESPN, and it just didn't work. Because
I didn't mind that one because I like the layout of it.
we were not Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, though. I mean,
Well,
that was
it's not,
us
but-
trying to do something that we've never done before, and that's not a bad thing necessarily. But we were, in my head, I was trying to be this other thing, and that's not what we are.
See, I wasn't trying to be them. I was just glad for a new format because after coming out of talking a billion hours about things and trying to cover every detail, it was literally however long you've got, like a minute or whatever, 60 seconds, however long it was, you've got that, get it out and get it done. And
Right.
for me, that was
Right.
good. So I was fine with that.
I also didn't like the favorite Christmas gifts episode, but I made my objections known on the air.
And then it turned out to be all heartfelt and such.
Yeah,
And then-
and I didn't bring a heartfelt one, so I mean,
That's what you get.
that's what I get for not liking it. What about you? What was
This is not fair because I don't have my phone in front of me or anything.
Well,
I
here-
can't look up
here-
what episodes have we done.
There's a list.
All
So
50 kind of run together.
Ryan Besessi says, Eric, those specs aren't as cool as the fake Oakleys everyone got on the 2002 YD trip.
Oh man, I wasn't on that trip though.
Oh man.
I didn't. My first YD trip was the 2003 Nashville trip. Okay?
For everyone
When
who
we went.
doesn't know, YD's Young Disciples.
Yes, we
Were
were.
you a part of that, Ashby?
No.
No, she
I
was
wasn't
not.
either. But
No,
I wasn't cool
my
enough.
first trip was when we went to Nashville and we went to the Wild Horse Saloon.
It wasn't about me being cool, it's the fact that I can't sing.
oh, come
I
on.
don't know about
I'm
that.
about
I
to say,
can't
don't.
sing.
I'm not
Don't.
insulting
I can't.
anybody on the
Definitely
YDs,
can't
but they were not all singers. It was
I
hey, my
was.
friend's here, so let me be here.
But that was the main reason I went. Who was it? Trudy Brown invited me. I was like, oh, Trudy invited me somewhere. I'll go.
Plus, there weren't a lot of YDs from Kinley, to be honest. Like that was
No, that was more of a Pine Level
level
thing.
situation, which is fine. But yeah,
We
it
weren't- yeah.
wasn't. I saw them in concert a few times, and I have their CDs to this day. And I had a crush on Matthew Coates, so
Everyone did.
right? Oh my gosh.
I didn't know him. Other than
No,
the
I didn't
fact
know
that
him.
Everybody had crushes on him.
Everyone had a
I
crush
didn't know
on
him.
him.
I had a crush on him. Oh man.
All right, let me. What? While he's looking up, did you have Ashley? Did you have a least favorite episode?
Oh, I get to answer these too?
I mean, you're part of the show.
Because this is
I mean,
important.
Because I mean, 'cause-
Ashley's like, well, I've really enjoyed the past 3 or 4, but other than that,
I think that I think I can admit to this that
yeah,
I
it's not gonna hurt our feelings.
I don't listen to the ones that I don't have a reference.
So like the wrestling episode,
Right.
Yeah.
So there's episodes I've never heard.
Yeah,
That's
And
okay.
I should go back and listen to them just to be a good fan.
just to see our wrestling impression.
I'm the
Right.
same way too. Though.
Right.
Like, if I'm listening, if
Right.
I'm going to a podcast, I search for things like, even
Right,
if it's
because I was
a
just
brawl,
like, I'm not
yeah.
going to understand any of this.
Right.
So there's some episodes that I haven't. But I will say probably,
Of the ones you have listened to.
of the ones I have listened to, probably my least favorite one was the Thanksgiving TV specials.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe because I was just like, I knew all the shows you were talking about, or most of them. And I kind of knew the specials because I watched all the same things as a kid growing up that you guys did.
Mhm.
But I don't know, I was just kind of like, meh.
Yeah, and that was,
Well, I feel like it's hard. You're reaching for
Right,
Thanksgiving.
right.
you are.
There's
reaching.
so many Christmas ones. Not Disney,
Yeah, it's not like-
Christmas.
I mean, we could do another
Christmas.
Christmas one this year, like
And still
using
have
different
plenty
ones and
left
still
over.
have plenty left over.
Right.
And that was one of those things where and this is something I'm still guilty of. I was very guilty of it this year, where I try to tie in when it comes to scheduling. Kyle's like, let's just do whatever. And I'm like, well, let's tie it into like anniversaries or holidays or seasonal events or whatever. So like February, we did love songs, and we did Batman Forever because it's been 25 years, and that's a big anniversary. We did Heavyweights because it's been 25 years. And
I know that we'll get to this later, but I was surprised because it's what can be a lot of different things, and I know it's a lot of what's, and I know it's more 90s to today, not necessarily 80s, and it's pop culture, but I really thought that your most popular episodes would be about the franchises and the TV shows and the movies that we all love, but I was surprised that a lot of people commented on social media that they loved the musical episodes, like just the random, this is my favorite love song, or this is my favorite song of summer.
Honestly, like if you're asking, like I keep scrolling through and there's nothing specific, but it's all the movie ones, and none of them are like, oh man, I love these. Like I feel like, especially some of the older ones, you can have to come back to, I feel like a lot of it was where we droned through a lot of them. I feel like we've gotten better, especially with the Marvel stuff, and we're getting better with that, and we're getting better with topics, and like, here's a quick gist of it, and the rest of it's just some, here and there, let's have fun with it. Versus some of the older ones, I really feel like we felt like we had to try to explain the movie away and drag it on, trying to talk as much as possible about it, versus I really enjoy some of the more sporadic things where it's just like, what are your favorite things, or what is this, and like trying to jump to that, so that way it is, I don't know, you're not, as a listener, you're not expecting, you have no clue, but when somebody brings up something, like I listen to Saturday Morning Rewind, and he doesn't put out as many podcasts as he used to, but like he interviews like voiceover people and stuff from the same way from our childhood, but even beyond that, they would do like Christmas special, and like, what is your favorite memory from Christmas, and or something like toy or whatever, like, and it's in that moment, it's something you haven't thought about in 20 something years, but all of a sudden it hits you, like, oh my gosh, how much is that now? Is that on eBay? Like, how much does that go for? Do I really, maybe I can buy one now. Like, you don't really need it. You probably are not going to. But it's something that hits you in the heart. And it's like, I haven't thought about that in forever. And you really want to go look at it. So that's where it hits me. Not to say like I don't enjoy the movie ones, and I definitely feel like we're getting better. But it's a lot of those old movie ones, even the movies that like I was all heck excited and suggested, was just not something that hung in there for me.
Yeah. Well, so now that I made you relive those painful memories, what's your favorite episode?
You want to go first?
Love Songs is my favorite one.
Okay.
That was a good one.
That was a very good one. I have several favorites, I guess. Like I'm looking at them like in tiers. Like, what was the first good one we did? I thought the first good one we did was The Lion King. That's why I wore this shirt, because we wore this to go see the new Lion King last year.
Makes sense.
And I know it's a Legend of the Hidden Temple shirt. But
I was trying to make that connection at first. It's like, oh, well, yeah.
But I wore this when we went to go see the new Lion King. So I was like, okay. And I just so you know, I think about sentimental junk like that all the time. So, So
it's not junk. That's
whatever.
Heartfelt things.
And then the next great episode I felt like, or good episode I thought, was Summer Songs. That was fun. And that was the one where I actually like edited in the songs like into I gave you a little preview. And I wish I had the gumption to keep doing stuff like that.
Well, I'll say too, like even listening to the last week's episode, and how good of a job you did with that, where all of a sudden it actually sounds somewhat professional, adding in some music here and there.
Somewhat.
Well, like I'm saying, like
it wasn't professional. No, I get what
versus back then, we just didn't. We would throw things in, and it's like the conversation was on this level that was really low. Then music came in.
Part of that is the $250 box that we
it is, but it's just all of a sudden
better.
Music would just come in and like blow your eardrums out. So, but it wasn't a you thing, like you say, it's an equipment thing.
So that one stands out to me. Dead Poet Society, I think, was probably our best episode of all last year.
That was one of my favorites, because the way you guys talked about it, I remember watching it for the first time and just sobbing at the end, and it was so good.
I feel like for that, it's something I'm more passionate about. Versus somebody's like Heavyweights, I remember loving, and I'd sit down and watch Heavyweights now, but like, it's not something you're connected with, other than it made me laugh.
Yeah. And then from this year, Love Songs is definitely up there. Disney Songs was up there. The music episodes are fun because I sing the music. I sing the songs. So any excuse to do that, and it just doesn't stay inside my head because there's constantly music going in my head for every situation. So an excuse to do that is always a good thing. So if I had to pick an overall favorite, it would probably be The Lion King, just because of one, the connection to that movie. For me, yes, childhood favorite movie, blah blah blah, but the connection I have to Africa in general, and for me to get a chance to talk about that is always a good time. So I felt like that was our first good episode, so it's still my favorite.
Nice. Okay.
What about you? What was your favorite episode that you weren't in?
I forget that I wait a second.
Because I know you're gonna be like, oh yeah, it was Captain America, obviously.
Hold on.
My first episode.
Let me go to my podcast app and look at this.
Yeah, just heads up. We're gonna turn this around on you every single time.
Oh man.
Well, the questions you put out there that we can turn on you, it's easy just to ask you what they are.
That's fair.
I mean,
okay, I wasn't in.
There's episodes that I forgot we did. Like going over your list.
so wait a minute, we did what?
Mm-hmm.
Remember we did the Santa Claus twice because we did it one time and then my computer died.
Yes.
Like and we had to get a new hard drive and everything. So we went back and re-recorded it and released it like the day we recorded it too. So
forgot about that.
yeah, we probably need to redo that one too because that one was that's a really good movie.
There's no need to redo it though. You still got like a billion Christmas movies.
I mean, yeah, but the Santa Claus.
So, okay, I really loved the Disney Pixar thing because we got to, like, that was the first time that we, as the audience member, got to participate.
Audience participation.
And it was a lot of fun because we were, like, arguing in the comments and it was hilarious. It was a blast.
Right.
But because I'm such a Christmas freak, I would have to say Home Alone is probably my favorite episode.
That was, I think, might have been the first time we actually did like a fun facts and observation section for movies. Because I remember we did 10 because that's what Johnny counts to 1, 2, 10. And but there were just so many fun facts out there.
Keep the change of filthy animals.
So can you think though that means 6 months near about of recording that we didn't even have like fun facts. It was just
right.
Let's talk about this movie.
So yeah, cool.
Nice.
Cool,
okay.
cool.
So now that we've talked about favorite and least favorite, it would make sense to start out with this, but I didn't want to. I wanted to start out with talking about the episodes.
Okay.
Whose idea was this podcast?
I felt yours.
I think it was mine. Because so the podcast
that
idea
further
actually
backs up my choices in the Avengers episode. That's okay.
Oh, thanks.
Just saying.
I'm the heartfelt one.
Yes.
Oh, it was Eric's idea.
Well, I mean, the idea for a podcast went
discussion.
all the way back to like 2012, where me and Joe Davis were talking about doing a sports podcast. I even signed up a Twitter name. We were the Eric and Joe Sports Show, and it rhymes. So
it should have taken off.
And but I didn't know how to do a podcast. I didn't know what kind of equipment we needed. Didn't know anything. So that kind of fell away. For a few years. And then when we started our nonprofit, Legit, the 5 of us sat down and we actually recorded something on this one night. Do you remember that?
I do. It was bad.
It was really
that one up.
No, well, I believe that too.
That's very heated discussion.
It was
we
were discussing nice political
things that I'm not much a part of. I'm the heartfelt one.
Kneeling, for the national anthem was the topic. Is it okay or is it not okay? And we had a couple of us who were, on one side passionately, and a couple of us who were on the other side passionately, and some of us who were trying to stay in the middle passionately. And
here I am just trying to be like, this is what I fully believe, but look, you've got to stop and calm down and understand this. Like, this is what this is about.
Also, that's 100% me, is passionately in the middle.
Passionately in the middle. Like,
yes.
I see what you're saying, and I don't want to upset you.
But also, can we stop yelling? That's
great.
Please don't yell at me.
That's not right.
So we did that. I had a little tiny mic that clipped onto the laptop, and that again, I went through and started listening to it, and I started editing and figured out how to work GarageBand. And again, that never saw the light of day because it's like, guys, we can't put this out there because half the people who listen to this are going to hate YouTube. Half of you are going to hate. Half the people who listen to this are going to hate you two,
and 100%
of the people are going to hate me for putting this out there.
Yeah.
So we didn't put that out there, and then finally last year at the beginning of 2019, we had talked about doing a pop culture thing for years, and we'd done these reaction videos on our Legit page or promoting the Hope Community Kitchen, and finally we say, what's stopping us? And we're like,
Eric put the timeline down. It's like, we're starting. I was like, well, let's plan. And he's like, no, we're starting.
We need to get started because we've talked about this for 2 years now. We did that first podcast on the flag in 2016, right before the election. Good timing, by the way. So we talked about it for 2 or 3 years at that point, and it was like, okay, we need to do this, or we're never going to do it. So I was like, we have 6 months. We need to do research, talk to people who've done this. I don't know anything about equipment. I have a laptop and I can do editing stuff because I figured out how to do that. But in terms of equipment, I need you to figure that out because you have a better background in that. So we did the research. He said, we're going to get these kind of microphones. We found this board for $75 sent again, Roger Duvall. And then we finally just said, okay, we got everything we need at this point. Let's do something. And that's kind of where it went. So
you'll come to learn that Eric's the one that actually plans things out as actual like.
I am a planner.
He is, but I'm the one that's like, man, I'm the idea guy. Where it's like, let's do this. This is exciting. Okay, you do the work. Like, I don't mean like I try to do my best, but like even like gear got me excited again. And I think it comes from hanging out with musicians for so long, and the guy running a studio and hanging out with that. You get excited about the gear that you can get and how that makes things better. The same way, even buying the simple box that you two are using makes microphones a billion times better than what this is.
Times.
Right.
And so even like yesterday, I spent most of my spare time at work looking at new gear. Like, not for us to buy right now, but like in the year to come, how can we upgrade even more? And it's like right now, the microphone for us to get costs about the same as everything we already have. Like, as a whole. So it's like, that's not something that, I'm not the guy that pushes it. That's like,
right.
No, we need this.
What media?
It's like, it's like, we each need $400 microphones. It's like, no.
Go to What the Most Media shop, buy a t-shirt, and then you can tip us $400 for your shirt.
So like in my mind, it's like, okay, but that's the good thing is I'm not over crazy where it's like, well, no, we've got to have it. We can't do it if we don't have it.
Right.
That's the same way where we started with these mics, where it's like good entry level microphone. A lot of people use them, and it's a great starting point because if it doesn't work and you stop, you didn't waste a whole lot of money.
And literally, like that third microphone, Andy Cockrell bought for us because he had done some research. Said, hey, my podcasting friend said this is a great mic to start with. It's like, we already have 2 of these mics.
That's great.
Now we have a third one, and it worked out well. He knew.
Right.
Like I talked to him yesterday. He's like, somehow I foresaw that y'all were going to need a third co-host, and y'all were going to need another mic.
I mean,
he's like, I tried to hint at that when I bought you the microphone. I don't know what took you so long.
But I think that's one of the reasons this partnership works really well is I'm the planner. I like to, I like the ideas, but I want to put them down on paper and see how they are arranged in order. You're the guy who has the energy, who wants to get things done. And then adding Ashby in, and I mentioned this last week when we did our Avengers comparisons. She's coming in here and she's holding everyone accountable. She's keeping us straight. She's making things better. And so I think it works extremely well. We have 3 different viewpoints and personalities, but they, if we were all the same planner or all the same ideas person, we wouldn't get anything done.
We never would have started if it was just me.
Yeah.
I'd have like pages and pages of ideas. And same, I can't type them out. I'm like the handwriting person.
And we would have killed each other if it was me and then you as me.
Yeah.
yes.
This is my show. No, this was my idea.
Right.
So, but if this wasn't my idea, I'm not doing it. Well, me either.
Let me go ahead and put this out there for 54, 55 episodes now. Thank y'all for putting up with me.
I mean, I've only been doing it for a few episodes.
Yeah, if you can last till the end of the year, I'll be very impressed, actually.
Oh, man. So one of my other questions was, what was it like getting it off the ground? So I know you've already talked about this a little bit, but I think that, there is a knowledge gap between wanting to do a podcast and doing a podcast.
Yes.
And so if people are listening right now and they're like, well, I also think I would be really great at podcasting, you have to think about the rights that you have to certain things. You have to think about the legality of what you're putting out into the public and on the air. You have to think about a logo and a theme song and what the technology is going to be like and how many social media handles you need. And there's some things that I think that we're starting to think about, into the future, like domains and things that you might not necessarily need right now, but you want to own, you want to have the rights to. And you think about, all the podcasts that I listen to, like my favorite Murder is one of the most globally recognized true crime podcasts. But when you listen to their first episodes, they're just 2 girls sitting in like an attic loft talking about murder.
Yeah. And
you think, okay, well now we have a Patreon, now we have a merch, website, now we have, and so just from thinking about doing a podcast to that first step of doing an episode, what did that look like? Like, what was that checklist?
So, I literally found a doc yesterday that I had started before we got started of just topic ideas. And then it also originally it had other things that we needed to do before. So it was equipment. You know, we had to have money for equipment too. So, I mean, like, we had to decide, like, how much are we really willing to put into this to make this sound as good as we can? Me, I was one of those, like, I just want to do it. And I was like, well, we want to sound good. I don't want us to sound bad. So he kind of helped keep me in check there. And I'm glad he did, because
now you understand why, like, the past 2 weeks, I'm like, what's wrong with my microphone?
Yeah, so we had to do that. We had to come up with a name. And that was like, so me and Kyle have been playing music together for about 5 or 6 years now, mostly at church and stuff. And we'd started a little thing on the side that we originally did for our youth group, and then we started playing some other things. And we never really had a good name. I mean, even the name we have now, Searching for Silas, is not a great name, but it's
not even something I advertise.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the band number.
Yeah,
it's the music thing.
So that was something that we just kind of really stressed early on, was like, we need to have a catchy name that's not something that we would be ashamed to promote or whatever. And was it you that came up with What the What, or was it?
I'll take that one.
I mean, I guess I'll give it to you. I mean, I think we were just joking, like, What the What? And hey, that would be a good name. And it's like, well, let's see if we can come up with something else. And we never did. It's like, What the What just kind of stuck. So that, was something. Kyle had a connection with a band called The Separate, who gave us the rights to use any of their music. So originally we were going to use a song called Satellite.
Is it?
Yeah. And it
like
had
POD?
Yeah.
No.
No, not like POD.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Is that what that song's called?
I think that, no, not
Yeah.
Sky is Falling Down, isn't it?
Oh.
Maybe it was Sky is Falling Down.
Yeah.
I thought it was Satellite.
They've redone that song 2 or 3 times. That's
Okay.
the big Separate
But
song.
it was, kind of like,
it's different.
It was different, spacey, kind of interesting. And so I started clipping that, and he's like, no, go with Heartbeat. And that was just more upbeat.
It's
and,
so catchy.
It is.
I remember asking you guys, I was like, I need to know, because I know at some point there were some episodes where you were like, our theme song is, and I couldn't find that, and so I asked you, I was like, I really need to know the name of this band so I can add this to my Spotify playlist, and I have added it to my Spotify playlist. I listened to some of their other stuff,
and their music's really great. And so I mean, that was Kyle though. That Kyle had the connection there. He had the vision for that. Me, I was just like, okay, we need to find a song where we don't have to pay for it, because we're already paying,
right? Of course.
Money for the board, money for the microphones, money for that little thing right there that we plug our headphones in, and then that's not. I mean, I spent money on a laptop specifically for us doing the podcast,
right?
And coming from like a musician background, like, I can't tell you how many times we've played shows or done things where you're doing it for, the publicity, and it's like, okay, I get that, but you can't make a living off of that.
Right.
Thankfully, The Separate's not really they're all doing their own lives now. This is like their own thing. But it's the same, like, I've got a lot of great friends that are putting out music now that I know if I asked, they would, let us use their music. And I still would, like, with Casey or anybody else, I would like to use their stuff. But at the same time, I want to do that in a respectful manner where it's like, you deserve to get paid for what you're doing.
Right. I think artists, and I think podcasts specifically, live in this, especially when you're first starting out, live in this like liminal space between, artists deserve to be paid for what they create, because it is difficult work, and if you're making a living as an artist, whatever you're making, it's something that you deserve to be paid for. And so, all this kind of like, well, work for tips or work for exposure, like that, like you spent hours creating a song or a painting or something. And so I really believe in that. But then on the flip side, there's a lot of a cultural shift, I think, in a lot of artist communities about monetizing hobbies.
Right.
And it's like, if something you love becomes something that you then are making money off of, when does it stop being something that you find joy and passion in?
Right.
Because now you're just doing it to earn money.
Right.
And so it's like, don't always think of every hobby or everything you love doing as like, how can I make money off of this?
Absolutely.
And so I think that there's a balance there.
And that comes a lot even with what we're doing.
Yeah.
The same way, where it's like, definitely my friends that do music full time and that's what they do. Like, I totally get you got to make money off of that. And at the same time, but making money so they can survive to continue to do what they love. And it's the same way with a podcast. So you can turn it completely around from loving it to all of a sudden, how can we make money? How can we do this much? You know, and you don't enjoy it anymore. It's just an income.
I think there's something to be said about this being a passion project first, and this being something fun first. And this is something that, you know, when I sent my manifesto out last night, we'll use that word now.
Yes.
When I sent that out last night, you know, I mean, those were all questions that I felt like needed to be asked. But I want to stress that if we're not having fun doing it, you know, to me, having fun and enjoying this is better than numbers.
Correct.
It's better than monetary gain and monetary value.
Right.
Because I already have a job that I love, but they pay me for it. So, I mean, I don't need another job that they pay me for as well.
Right.
I want this to be something I absolutely love doing. Otherwise, there's no point in us doing it.
Yeah. I definitely think there's a space between, you know, making this podcast bigger and better, but still loving what we do and not seeing success as like we all quit our full-time jobs and like go on the road with the podcast and like end up at Comic-Con and you know, like there's such a big gap between the smallest podcast and the biggest podcast that, you know, there's room in there, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And if that happens, you know, best case scenario, if that happens,
I mean,
that's fantastic.
If we all quit our jobs and become full-time podcasters,
then that would be fantastic. But
there's like the big
but I want, you know, keep the eye on why we do this to begin with.
Correct.
What's our purpose in doing this? Our purpose is, for one, this is something we're passionate about and we love doing. But for me, it's just a chance for me to talk about something, you know, all these different topics that we talk about. It's something that I love to talk about.
Right.
I like, you know, I guess entertaining people, for lack of a better term. I mean, you know, putting a smile on people's face, and, you know, I guess giving some knowledge, you know, in the while we're doing that. I mean, all those things are at the top of my list of why I enjoy doing this. Money is not at the top of that list.
No.
Getting 1,000 or 1 billion subscribers is not at the top of that list. Now, those things are great, but that's not why we do this.
Right.
So.
And your question at the beginning too was, you know, for somebody that's wanting to start a podcast or to do something. And my biggest thing is to say, do what you can afford. If you can't save up, if you're, you know, say you're in high school or whatever age you're at, and you have a cell phone, and you can't afford, you know, your parents can't afford to buy you microphones and a soundboard and you know, a laptop or whatever. You may have some of the other stuff, but in all honesty, like, use what you got.
Right.
There's a difference between planning and, you know, if you're able to make purchases to do things, that's different. But don't let that hold you back from getting started. Like, if all you have is a cell phone, go for it and record it with a cell phone and do it. Because honestly, everything right now we put on YouTube is on cell phone. Like, and I have a nicer camera, but it only does 30-minute segments. But at this point, though, for what we're doing, until we grow YouTube and make it better, then we're not focused on that so much. The same way we've invested some here, and we'll continue to invest the other as we grow those areas. But the same way, don't let that stuff hold you back, because for the most part, you'll always say, well, I don't have enough stuff to do it. And you'll never do it. We were just in a position that we could afford to buy some of these things. Because even before we started, we technically already had a different mic that would have technically worked. Yeah. It was like the Blue Yeti one that would have worked. And it was nice, and I got it for Christmas. But in the way that we knew we wanted to do it, it wasn't going to work. Like, we knew we wanted to have individual mics. We wanted to have it where we could have guests on. And you could still do it with it. But
it made it a lot harder. And
it was going to be a lot more, you know, difficulty putting it together, making it actually get to the computer with how we wanted to do it. So I ended up returning that and buying one of these and some other stuff, and we made it work this way. And the same way, like I said, looking yesterday at ideas of stuff, how we can upgrade from there. And it doesn't mean jump straight to the stupid microphones, but just like little things that we can replace here and there to make things better and simpler and easier. But that's where we've done it for a year now, and we understand we've grown through things the same way. We bought a used board that for $75 was great, but there's also some like channels that don't necessarily work so great sometimes, and there's
channel 1 doesn't work at all.
No, like there's just, like, and it's just where pots aren't cleaned and you got to clean it or take it apart, but we don't use all that. So, but just, I don't know, I had a bad problem by that for a lot of things, where I make giant lists of things that I want to do and have ideas about it, but then never proceed with it. So don't do that.
I'd be remiss to, since we're talking about, I guess, you know, the idea, you know, from the idea stage to conception or whatever, the role that Rickie Liles, played and still continues to play in this podcast. I mean, we literally sat at his kitchen table one night with this board and my laptop and tested out everything and tried to figure out, why isn't this working? And if we didn't have a cord, well, he has cords from when he was on the road full time as a musician. And
half the stuff is still plugged in, Rickie.
I mean, we've got a bunch of backup cords over here in the corner for those who were watching on YouTube or Facebook, but I'm pointing over to the side that, in case this doesn't work, well, we'll go get this or go get that. And so he was a huge supporter of us early on. I mean, we're still recording in his house, and he doesn't have to let us come over and record in his house. I mean, obviously,
That's true.
And so I would be, like I said, remiss if we didn't mention the contributions he's had on the show, both early on and to the present day. So.
Oh, also that reminds me, I was going to ask you, because you, at the end of a lot of episodes, you mentioned Rickie.
Yes.
So you've kind of explained him along the way, but also talking about everything he does for you. But you also sometimes mention Tim.
Okay.
And you mentioned him as a research assistant.
Yes.
So shout out to Tim. Tell me a little bit about what that means, what he actually does.
So especially for movies and stuff, I've asked him if he would just do some research for us, and he usually sends it to me. He doesn't send it to Kyle for some reason. But Kyle does his own things.
You're the one that asked
him. He doesn't like
him.
you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Eric kind of set up that whole thing anyway. He was like, "Hey Tim, will you mind doing this?" And then so Tim sent it to him.
Yeah,
Nice.
and so he'll send stuff to me. He has access to our database where we have the upcoming episode. So if he sees a movie, he will if he has time, he'll put together some research and some notes, and some of that stuff I'll use. Some of it I don't use. I mean, but I have it available, and it just makes life easier for me when I'm putting together scripts for each movie and stuff, and knowing what the I guess having all that information in one place is very valuable. So big shout out to Tim Hudson there.
Nice. Okay, so I did have another question. Hold on. We just got so wrapped up in that one.
It was a good question. What about you? No.
My favorite part of getting the podcast off the ground was showing up at episode 48 with zero effort.
Nice. And killing it and owning it and completely taking over.
To the point that if she doesn't come back, do we really want to keep doing this?
Exactly.
Oh, man. Stop.
She tried really hard not to, though. She's like, "No, remember,
But also
guys,
keep talking.
it's your thing."
You did that episode, then you did Goosebumps, then you took a week off, and we did Batman Forever. It's like, we miss Ashley.
She's coming back, right?
She's coming back, isn't she?
So,
Mom didn't watch this week.
She tried so hard to be
I love
like,
that.
"No, this is yours. Remember, I'll do it when I can." And we're like, "Yeah, but
can you do it? This week, and then
So,
can you do it next week?
I think it's important for everyone at home to know that this is an off year for me. I mean, it's an off year for everyone, obviously,
Yes.
because of what's going on. But because of what's going on, I have a lot of time on my hands these days. So the reason I told you guys, don't put me in this podcast permanently unless you can stand to lose me sometimes, is because when work is not, having a global pandemic happening in the middle of it, I travel a lot for work. And then I also just travel a lot for me because I love traveling. So this year alone, I was at the beginning of the year before everything shut down, I was in Montreal, Canada, New York, DC, Charleston, and then I was supposed to be in Asheville. I was supposed to be in Chicago. So there are going to be whole months, honestly, sometimes where I might not be able to make it.
Off season.
Yeah, so I just wanted to
That's when we'll start traveling as well.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say one of my goals. We'll get to it.
Traveling.
Well, and I was also supposed to go to Europe, actually this month.
We can go to Europe
for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I have a passport.
I do too. It was out in 2022.
Don't you threaten me with a good time. I love traveling. I love it so much. And this is what's happening
We'll
right
talk
now
a little more.
is killing me. But anyway, so that's why I wanted to let you guys know that,
She's letting us down softly.
Yeah.
She's I'm trying to get you through this.
I'm trying to break up with you guys, but
it's not me, it's you.
Here's the
promise.
thing. You're going to have to go
no, wait,
alone
it's not you, it's
sometimes.
me.
No, the other way.
It's us. It's definitely us.
It's definitely me. So anyway, yes, there are going to be time. Don't get used to me being here every week is what I'm trying to say.
That's why we're going to get you hooked up where you can just call in.
Yeah, we're going to set you up in one of those Facebook portals or something.
It'll be like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah.
But it'll be like, where in the world is Ashby? It'll
I
be
have
like
a segment every week.
This week I'm tuning in from
we gotta have
Toronto.
we gotta have you travel with a green screen. And have we'll have the background of the city
and I have a big red coat. I have a big red
That'd be
coat.
awesome.
Yeah.
You're just set up in every hotel room. You're like,
okay,
Ashby, come on, we gotta go.
The wheels are turning here.
Show you guys the room.
Also, can't wait for Halloween because we're definitely going to do a Halloween episode where we're dressed up and she can be Carmen Sandiego.
Oh my gosh, can't wait. I need a big red hat though. I'll get on that.
You've got time.
Okay, so your favorite memory of making the podcast? Because I ask about episodes, but what's your favorite memory so far of making the podcast?
All right, so this is not for me. So we didn't have. Let me go ahead and say we didn't have access to these questions beforehand. We wanted to be like put on the spot.
Yep.
So we couldn't rehearse our answers. So, but I'm usually quick at coming up with stuff on my feet, and I'm letting Kyle let it simmer a little bit.
Are you saying that Kyle
so you know?
I know mine. I don't know yours. I don't have your brain.
Well, here you go first then if you want to. I mean, I'm going first every time. But
mine's been there's the time there where every week we put out a podcast where we film things that go along with it.
That was mine too. When we filmed,
that sounds like a lot of work.
It's really like in my brain it's not because
as
sure
the
it takes
lazy
a couple times.
In this group, that sounds like a lot of work.
There's one of those things you could do the episode and literally just like film in 30 seconds be done if you did it and knew what you were doing. But the part of it was planned ahead, so when you got here you did it and it was done. But
there's 4 specific ones that stick out to me. Jump in if you want to. But we did 2 for the Sandlot. One of those was we actually filmed it in Rickie's bedroom. I wasn't in that one at all. I was running the camera and kind of doing the directing, which was kind of cool for me because I'm usually put on camera and I don't like that all the time. But Kyle played the part of the kid who has to get the Babe Ruth ball from the Beast, and Rickie played the part of Babe Ruth wearing a Braves jersey.
Who we had access to. Who
came out of the bathroom for some reason.
Okay.
And then
improv.
And had to look at his, his wisdom on his hand. Which it's like someone told me this one time, kid. Heroes get remembered, but legends don't die. And I was like,
that's not what they say.
I guess that's kind of what it.
Goonies never say die.
It's like
no, that's not the line.
I think I've heard something similar to that before. And then at the end, he's like, "Oh, this trophy. Can I have this? Oh, this baseball. Oh, Bobby Orr." It's like, okay, the hockey. And just really random stuff like that was really cool. And then when me and Kyle did the argument contest, also with the Sandlot, where we were literally quoting the movie verbatim, and then he goes, "You play ball like a girl," and I'm like,
I'm remembering this episode,
and I'm like, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "You hurt me." And then I just go off. You're like, "That's really mean, Kyle." Okay, first of all,
you can't
say things like that. Okay, because women are equal to men in the 21st century. You need to be a better ally. And like, I just go off on him. He's like, "I thought we were just playing around." I mean, just little things like that.
Well, I'm much more of a visual person. The same way, like I'm sitting on my hands right now, and not out of intention, but it's just what I do because, if I'm on camera, I want to make you laugh. Yes. I want to be visual, and so sometimes that's why I'm more of the YouTube side, where it's like I want this to grow. I don't want us to do more than just record the episode. Like I want us to be able to do some other things that don't take an hour long. It's just literally throw something together and have fun with it.
30-second. We did one for summer music. That might be the last one we did, where we filmed. The Hot in Here was playing. We were complaining how hot it was in the kitchen. I left the kitchen.
You got Nick.
And then you hear Nelly's Hot in Here, and Rickie or Kyle walks in and is like, "Oh God, Eric, put your clothes back on."
And I got a shirt to the face.
That was a lot of fun. The Lion King ones where we
Rickie threw Simba off the roof.
Rickie threw Simba off the roof.
I can't believe you guys made Rickie get on his own roof.
It was his idea.
I tried to do it.
Kyle was doing it. He's like, "It's my roof. I'll do it."
Well, I mean, that's fair from the insurance perspective, I guess. If he falls off his own roof, that's different than if Kyle falls off his roof.
We did the one where we were singing "I Just Can't Wait to Be King," and you were doing the Zazu part. Where I've never seen a king or a beast with quite so little hair.
You got offended.
And I got offended because, no hair. And he was like, "You're a jerk, Kyle."
That's how this plays out. I'm a jerk to women, to hairless men.
Yes.
That's how that works out.
Okay.
I underrated one that we didn't really, I don't think we promoted it super much, but it's the one where Rickie's asleep in his chair. He's wearing the Hakuna Matata shirt. And me and you just kind of pop up behind the chair. It's like, wow, it really does.
Means no worries.
It really does mean no worries. He's like, and you're like, he's so problem free. Well, it must be his philosophy. And we're like being very, very quiet. And it's just that, stuff like that, where we get to see a little more of the creative side of what we do in a more of a visual context. Those are things I miss. And, spoiler, we'll probably talk about this when we get to goals, things I want to bring back.
We're already at 50 minutes. We may want to get
Speaking of the next
What a transition!
goals. What a transition! I really
Did you even get to talk about yours? I think I talked all over you.
No, you did.
You did, but it's okay. I talked about it at the beginning and you just jumped.
I jumped in. I'm sorry, buddy.
Okay, sorry, Kyle.
Is there anything specific?
Not anymore. You took it all. You took it all.
Wow.
Whitley's gonna come off
This is
again
just
this week.
more
Like,
of
does
the
he
same.
always jump all over you like that?
Yes, I
like,
do.
well, a lot of the time.
Sorry, Whitley. Sorry, Kyle.
Well,
I'll let you go
anywho,
first this time.
those were all of my questions, so that worked out really well. Now we're moving on to goals.
Great timing.
Yeah. Who wants to go first? So we each came up with 3 goals for the podcast, and they don't have to be like, we quit our jobs and whatever. Like, it's just like in the next year.
Wait a second.
Wait a second. Let me.
I need to call Roy Jr. real quick. Can I have my job back, please?
Take
just
down
in
the
the-
PE position at Micro. I'm coming back.
The gym teacher, you mean?
Oh, snap.
Now that I know that it bothers you.
Bottle's coming your way. How come I got the
Physical
bottle?
education.
She's a lady. I'm not gonna throw a bottle at her.
That's not feminism.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give it back.
Throw a bottle at
We'll
me.
give it back. I'll throw it back at you then.
Anyway, so it's just sort of what we envision for the future of the podcast in the next year, 2 years, what we're thinking about between the 3 of us. So who wants to go first?
Kyle.
That's right, Kyle's going first.
Okay.
Because I talked over you last time.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
this
my
ties in.
repentance here.
Penance.
This ties in right with what we were just saying. I made a list, but like it's not
It's
super
like
paragraphy.
4 pages long.
No, that's the social media show.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Number 1 is I want YouTube to grow more in the coming year.
Mhm.
And for a lot of that, it's just better content and better on there. Because I'll be honest, like I know that if you're not like we don't have a high volume of watchers on YouTube, which is understandable. It's a lot easier to do podcast stuff. With me sitting at work all day, I literally watch YouTube all day. Or don't watch, but I have it playing in the background.
Right.
So even a lot of the podcasts that I like
Backtracking there.
will have people there. Yeah. A lot of the people that I like that do podcasts also do YouTube videos of their podcast.
Right.
And when it's, bigger people, it's more fun to randomly turn, click back on and be like, oh, what are they showing here? What are they doing here? But more than that, I would like to do, I feel like once we can actually get the studio up and running a little bit better, so we actually have a studio.
The studio, what?
Who wasn't that?
Oh, Trent Lassiter joined, and someone, Ashton, Jordan, some people just
See?
popped up that they
So
joined.
she's waiting.
Your
I'm
wife
just
is
waiting.
watching too.
Nice.
I'm just trying to include them. Hi, Erica.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. But yeah, in the future, that's a goal for me is and that's why I push on the studio so much sometimes, because I know too, if I tune in on a YouTube video and it's just some guys and a lady or whoever, just people on a podcast and it's just this white
Just
room.
some dudes. We're all dudes.
Yeah, all dudes.
We're all
and a fold-up
dudes.
table.
He's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes.
Like, it's like your content better be amazing because it's very boring to look at.
Right.
So
right.
like I get that, and so that's why I don't get upset about the YouTube numbers right now because it's just something to continue to
Right.
get growth, to have back history on there at some point.
I had this weird thought because I know that Eric's always trying to do spinoffs, but I did have a
Yes.
thought about the YouTube channel where I could do a segment that was like either bi-weekly or monthly or weekly. It's like everything that happened, like all the pop culture news, but sort of like the all that skit. What was that called? Something
I don't
vital
know.
information.
Vital information.
So it's kind
Vital
of
information.
vital information, but it's like vital pop culture information, and I'm just like at a desk, just like talking about like the new trailer for Spider-Man 3 dropped this week, and stuff like that. Because I've been trying to do a little bit more social stuff and post and retweet some things that don't necessarily involve the episode of the week, but are just like, hey, Joel Schumacher passed away, and Wonder Woman 2 finally got a new release date, and things like that. Just keeping people up to date on the things that you and I guess all 3 of us kind of text each other about.
Yes.
Or the things I would text my other friends who I know care about different fandoms and pop culture about, but having sort of maybe an official thing for it somehow. I'm still thinking.
The funny thing is,
Here's the fanfic of the week.
well, the funny thing is, I wrote that down.
Out
Yes.
loud.
Yes.
I called it nostalgic news, but it doesn't have to be the title. That's just what I wrote down. Was just like nostalgic news, where it's not necessarily news of old things, but it's just those centered things. The same way where we loved stuff as a kid, and it's coming out now.
Right.
Right.
So it's that same thing that we would do in the same way. Either if you put it in an episode, you could do at the beginning, like just what's the news from this week, and it doesn't have to be big. But I do like the idea of actually just making a short video of just every week and putting that out.
Well, see,
versus the other.
I was thinking of more YouTube content.
Yeah, see, that ties into one of my goals as well, is YouTube exclusives. Where, like, so the podcast to me, you know, I like that we film it, and, you know, I like that we have another avenue to promote it or whatever. But just to see things that are specifically just for YouTube, where we talked about doing react videos, where, you know, Ashby watches Ric Flair do a promo against Jay Lethal.
Yes.
And, or, you know, or we do like little skits where, you know, Ashby's the therapist and we're sitting on the couch or something. I mean, stuff like, funny things like that.
So, Kyle, you never even realized how broken Steve Rogers was? Like, you never even thought about his PTSD?
I'm crying at the end.
Do you even care about him as a person? Like, he's not just a hero. He has feelings too, Kyle. Steve!
Where are you, Steve?
But I'll, you know, other things that I thought of was like, you know, this was like early on when we first talked about doing a YouTube. Is like, well, if we do like favorite TV theme songs, we actually perform the theme songs. You know, like have like a continuous cut. And I'm thinking like more Jimmy Fallon there, because that's, you know, he does stuff like that with Justin Timberlake, History of Rap.
Here's the thing. You guys are both musically talented. I'm not musically talented.
That makes it better, though.
That makes it a lot better.
I can rap.
See, there you go.
A little bit, depending
Absolutely.
sometimes.
There's a, I discovered this with Rickie several months ago. On Alexa, they have like 90s music trivia. And also have like competitions. Or like, so something I thought of like on the way here was like, you know, me and Kyle, and, you know, I don't know, Ashley maybe, like, okay, let's just use Kyle for example. He's a big coffee drinker. Can he tell different kinds of coffee from each other? Maybe Ashley can. So we blindfold her, you know, put 5 different samples and say, okay, here's your options. You have Starbucks, you have McDonald's, you have gas station coffee, you have coffee that, you know,
that's burnt as Bojangles.
You know, whatever. We have different kinds of coffee, and see if you can match the coffee. You don't have to be blindfolded for that, as long as we have the
If
answers.
it's acidic, it's Starbucks.
Yeah.
So like match the coffee with the brand or with whatever, you know, things like that.
Surprisingly, if it's good, it's from the Marathon gas station.
Yes.
Right? That has that little hint of hazelnut.
Yes.
Or like a hamburger, like, you know, do you know your fast food hamburger?
See, we did that before with the youth.
We did that with the youth. You know, so stuff like that where little short YouTube segments, you know, where it's not even specific about what our episode is that week, but just something fun that would be easy to shoot possibly.
I could go through my old toy chest. Here's my ribbon dancer.
Yes.
Let's see, I was thinking about
Here's
that
my
today,
still
too.
packaged Baby Spice Barbie doll.
Yeah.
Well, there's like the difference there with me and Eric. You
Just
know,
random.
Well, the truth is, I came into this thinking Eric and I were going to be all the same, and then I
Right.
realized like we didn't. Our childhoods were very different.
Yes.
And the same way you
Right.
come in, and a lot of our stuff is similar from our
Right.
childhood, but the same way we talk about toys, and it's your whole,
Right.
it's a whole different thing, and it's similar
Right.
to talking about, because I had an older sister that honestly I kind of played with her stuff anyway, because Barbie had the cooler like houses and things. It
She
was
had a
crazy.
great little Jeep.
Hunter used to steal, my younger brother used to steal my Barbie so his G.I. Joes could rescue them.
Yeah.
And I was like, stop playing with my Barbies!
Nice.
So, yeah, I think it's nice, you know, obviously this sounds like I'm doing a humble brag, but I remember being on the YouTube, you know, Pixar Disney thing, and a lot of the girls were picking differently than the boys.
And the dudes,
And
yeah.
finally one of the girls was like, you need female voices! It would be different if there was a girl right now. And so
She wasn't wrong.
right,
No.
and so I remember being like, I volunteer as tribute, like put me on the podcast.
That's how this started. Okay,
Yeah.
so someone asked me like, so how did Ashley get on your show? I'm like, I'm not really sure.
I volunteered myself.
She volunteered as tribute apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those things too where I'm the guy, and this isn't a slight on Eric, but
It is.
there's a lot of times where I'm just like, we ought to add somebody in new, or bring in some more guests, or do everything, and that makes Eric uneasy. Because, or at least it has, because you don't have full control over a random person coming in.
That's fair. He knows what you're gonna say. Like he's known you
Roughly,
for
yeah.
a long time. He knows what you're gonna do. He knows how you think. I am a wild card. Even though you guys know me, you haven't seen me in years.
Well, even like growing up, we didn't necessarily hang out. Like we knew
True,
each other,
yeah.
so there's still this whole background of each other that we don't really know.
My biggest memory of Eric,
Oh, God.
I didn't know him very well in high
Oh,
school,
God.
but he had the entire high school trained.
Yes.
If he walked into a classroom, he would go, NASCAR! And he would go, woo! And that's all I knew about him. I was like, who is this guy?
Yes. Because Eric talks about like this relationship that he and I had at some point, and honestly, I feel like I've forgotten about that relationship more than I remember.
Oh,
Still talking about it. But if you would have asked me anything about Eric at least like 5-6 years ago, I'd be like, oh yeah, he's the guy that would come in and yell NASCAR.
Yeah, he's
and
a
then he got
NASCAR
upset
guy.
because he ate too many hot dogs.
Do you
one
even
time.
like
That's
NASCAR?
literally-
No, I hate NASCAR. I didn't know. Someone put me up to it and said, you know, if you do NASCAR, everyone go woo. I'm like, okay, let's try it out. So I
Was
did
it
it. and
David
just-
Myrick? It was David Myrick, wasn't it?
Probably.
That
I
sounds
mean,
like
honestly.
him.
So it worked.
Yes,
and it's like,
it just stuck
oh.
there.
So
'Cause you were the
literally,
one that did it.
as a junior, I would walk into these freshman English classes.
Oh my god.
And I'd just yell NASCAR, like
Yes.
before class would start.
Yes.
And the whole class would go woo, and Miss Anderford's like, what is going on here?
Yes.
But it's just like a break you'd hear in the distance. And
Yes.
you'd be like, I think somebody just yelled. Like,
You'd be walking down like D Hall,
Yes.
and you just hear NASCAR, and then you
And
hear
you
woo.
The great thing is, at least our teachers and all the staff are just like, those stupid kids. So
I know.
they're not even saying, like,
It's
quit
just-
yelling!
It's just Eric.
Oh, it's just
Yeah.
Eric.
He's that safe kid.
Oh my
It's, like,
god.
it's funny because, like, on the way here, obviously, I think about a lot of stuff when I'm driving.
Same.
I had thought, like, okay, so, like, you're new to, like, our, like, team here, and I'm thinking, you know, I knew Ashley in high school, but I didn't really know, like, what does she remember about me in high school? So now I know.
Now you know.
I
Now you know.
I yelled NASCAR. And,
It's one of my formative high school memories.
wow.
So
Oh
somebody
my
else.
gosh.
All right, so we
We still have 8 more things to talk about.
Okay.
No, I did mine.
Oh, okay.
Well, my goal was YouTube exclusives.
Oh, okay. We'll just ties. Okay.
Cool.
That's fine.
Okay, so one of mine was obviously because I'm the girl, I'm like professional photography.
Yes.
So we need to get shirts. We need to get a studio that's designed with all of our toys and posters, and then we need to get all the equipment set up, and then we need professional
Yes.
photography. Because one of the things I was realizing, not just with the 3 of us, but even with the 2 of you, there's not a lot of good high-res photography to put across social media of us, you know, in our habitat.
It doesn't help that whenever, I don't know if who's picking the pictures now, but for the longest time he picked the worst picture on YouTube that would come up and post it as our Instagram
I picked
picture.
something that was just random. I didn't want a good
And
picture of us looking professional. Like, that's just not.
It was literally me doing like this. Or
Yeah, there
That's
was
what I would
one
do.
where
I would
my
scan.
face was
he would
screwed
scan
up, and I was like,
find
okay,
a picture
fine.
that where I look really stupid.
No, I don't aim for you. I just aim for something big happening.
It
Versus,
just happens to be me.
I almost
really
posted a
stupid.
picture today of Ashby that's doing this, is pointing. And so I zoomed in, I was like, well, it doesn't look good with the rest of us. Maybe it'll just be Ashby today pointing, but then it just didn't look good. Because same way it wasn't.
Look,
like a
get
good
this,
picture.
ready? Screenshot.
I'm parties. I probably won't watch this because it was the live video, not the camera video.
Oh,
But it's there, so. So we'll see. But no, I totally agree with
yeah,
that.
photography definitely.
Because there's just a presence of it that I've seen the same way. Because you talked the other day about you didn't mind, like, you know, doing advertisements either on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah,
or whatever.
no, that's,
But it's
yeah.
the same way that I thought was like, well, I wouldn't want any advertisements right now because we don't have anything. Not
Right,
having
yeah.
them, but there's
You have
nothing
to
good
have-
to put out there.
Right,
that-
you have to have an asset to go with the copy
Yes.
and the creative.
if
and
I
stuff.
saw it on Facebook, I would not be
So-
inclined to click it if I didn't know.
Right. No, I
So-
totally get it.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
What's your next goal?
what's your next goal?
What's your? Oh, okay. So you went through. Mine somewhat ties into that with the fact of just merchandise. Now I say that, and I don't mean that as in, hey, let's make a lot of money. Because honestly, right now, I don't think we would. I think we would sell to a ton of our friends because they like us, which
They
is
want
good,
to
and that's how
support us,
things get
yeah.
out. But I do think that they'd be more inclined if we were putting out a higher quality product, which will come with the studio and the promotional stuff,
Right.
and better filming and everything.
Maybe like an iMac or a Mac and not a MacBook.
Well, either way, I mean,
No.
what I'm thinking, but within, and not to jump all around, but like the new recording thing I'm looking at getting for us, we wouldn't use your Mac at all. Like you would eventually,
Yeah.
but all the recording is done on like a size of like that T whatever calculator that we used to have back in the day.
TI-83.
Yes, one of those.
Wow.
So live your life.
Except a
Of
little
course
bit,
you know.
a little bit thicker, but it's about that size, and everything would be recorded to it, and you'd be able to save your levels and everything like that. And then later, it literally you would take the disc out of it or plug it straight into your computer, and it would upload the same way. It would upload to GarageBand, but it would upload in individual tracks. So if all of a sudden I was really loud, or anybody, or you were loud, or anybody, or something happened, our mics are still going to pick each other up a little bit, but you could at least adjust things individually better than right now. Everything comes out as one big audio file.
Yeah.
Right.
But the same way, you wouldn't have to have that on the desk with us. We would be able to have more of us versus things in the way. The same way we could show things off or whatever else. But merch, it's one of those things being in a band for so long, it's always just the fun creative side of things. So it's like, it's cool to have. I get it that you gotta have people to buy it. And that's been more of my thing lately is looking over, and it's not about the numbers, it's not about how big can we get, but it's also, you've got to be smart where you don't go stock up on a billion things where you don't have enough people to even buy it.
Right.
So definitely improving on that, and also being smart about what you buy. I am a dude that just buys t-shirts and stuff all the time, so sure, I'd buy a shirt. I realize, we'll get to that in social media. That's not the same for everybody else. Some people do, some people don't.
Right.
I definitely think coffee mugs and other stuff like that is a very easy way for us to break into some stuff. Something we can use.
I know we'll see this when we get to social media, but I was really appreciative to everyone who was honest. Like, I would buy that, I wouldn't buy that.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like sometimes your friends are like, yes, I would buy merch. And you're like, great. And then they don't. And so I really appreciate that they were just like, oh, well, I already have a lot of that. Like, I would be really interested in seeing your logo on this item.
Yeah.
And so it gives you some direction. And I know that there are stores that work on the internet somehow that you can you're only charged for what you sell. So we sell a t-shirt, they make a t-shirt, we get a cut, that kind of thing. And so, but I'm not quite sure. I have to look into
it's crazy how that works. I talked to Brandon Evans this week because he's been doing windows hitting on the side as an actual legit business for a long time mobily, but now he's finally bought it, using space and building it up and actually using a shop now. And that's how he does his shirts, is through a company like that. And he was explaining that to me because I do have friends that are screen printers, and I've got friends and no companies that I've used for a lot of stuff. But it is a lot of upfront costs that you buy. And
that's the thing with merch is you're like, now I have $1,000 in merchandise.
Yes.
And we found that out when we did legit shirts.
Sell it.
We still have legit shirts that we haven't sold them.
And it's always the tricky part of the sizes that you buy. And I will say, sometimes doing it that route, you do get some better quality stuff. And so it is better to know that up front and know what you're looking at. And sometimes it's better. But depending on what you're trying to sell, it's a lot easier to go that route where I know Brandon's got his logo and stuff, but you literally can go to that website and put it on a baby onesie or a jacket or a t-shirt.
Cute. Like, what the one baby is.
Yeah, so you can change it. And I feel like I made a note here too, is even with merchandise, is like this gives us a chance to revamp creativity wise. I know Eric, you've already mentioned about possibly changing the logo up some, and two, in the fact that you come on Ashby now that can also include in more of a role of helping with that versus before. It's like, well, this kind of works, it's kind of simple, and it's not really done, so it works. But we're definitely at a spot that we could do better. And thankfully, between the three of us, I'm sure we have some other people that are more talented than I am graphic design wise that could help out more. And same way, like when you divide across cost of things with three people, it's like, okay, it's not that bad to pay this person to do an amazing job versus me working on something that technically, sure, I have a degree in, but I have not used in 10 years. So I don't mind doing some of that stuff, and it's fun, but also a lot of times I know that if we would go elsewhere, we could do something better. But the same way with shirts and everything else, or cups or anything else, it'd be a great opportunity for us to create things. Same way we first got these microphones. I still have it saved on my Amazon thing where it's just these little blocks that go over your microphone, but then you can put your logo on it. So, and it's it's old school.
Oh my gosh, like the Howard Stern radio show?
Yes, all those things. And news broadcasters, everybody else that used to, have it. And this is still doing podcasts. So, but I watched like this skateboarding podcast, but they all had theirs that way. And it's just like the Nine Club or whatever, like on this little thing. And they're not expensive, but the same way you want to make sure it works with the flow of everything else. So if we had something like that now, we kind of look dumb, like just as like Rickie's wall in here. Which, shout out to Rickie, I'm glad you have this wall. I'm glad you allow us to use it.
It's a great wall.
Yeah,
that was a nice wall.
Yes, but and I included that with all this, like better lighting, better all sorts of things to grow
Shrek reference
as a whole. So
for
that,
anyway,
merchandise is.
I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder. All right, my goal. We briefly touched on this earlier. Let's take it on the road. Like I'm all for like the idea of going to a movie that comes out and then doing like an emergency pod afterwards and uploading it like that night, like as a review of what we saw, whether it be spoiler filled or not. I like the idea of
it'll be spoiler filled.
It will be. I like that too because in the beginning we didn't do that and we were very just like we're not going to focus on being up and current. Like sure we'll go watch it and we may talk about it, but now we've grown to the fact that if it relates to the type of movies, and that's different if you're going to review every movie. That's not us.
No, but
if there's some new movie, especially in the time we live in now, where we finally get to go back to movies, yes, it would be awesome
like
to go
when
see.
Wonder Woman 2 comes out. I mean, we're doing a Wonder Woman pod at some point, but if we were to do Wonder Woman 2 the night it comes out or whatever, and have that like as our emergency pod release that week or whatever. We joked about several weeks ago, I don't know if it was on the show or if it's in our text messaging, going to like the Wizarding World and doing a podcast from the Harry Potter world or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, like, I'm like, yes, let's do that. Like, we'll do a Harry Potter podcast as Bat Diggory and Twilight Diggory and whoever's from Slytherin you're going to be.
Gender bended Draco Malfoy.
Just like, give me some time. I gotta get
Girl Draco Malfoy.
Girl Draco Malfoy.
I need time for my hair to slowly transition and hopefully to turn blonde.
Something we had talked about before Ashley had come on was that like GalaxyCon in Raleigh, like they had slots, you know, where you could sign up for like a slot or whatever, or like a time or a booth or whatever. And I know they're not having it this year, obviously, but
they are. It's in December.
Okay, well,
they say they are.
They say
yeah.
But for us to, you know, within the next year or so, for us to do maybe not that one, but to do something like that where we have like enough things to offer. You know, I don't know how we would get there. That's not. I've never been to one of these things. You might be able to fill us in on that. You might be able to fill us in on that. I'd like to go to one just to see what it's all about. But for us to do something like that like the traveling realm where we're not just always in studio every week. Yes, majority of our stuff will still be produced here, but having some fun stuff
at your house.
Yes,
yeah, not here at the studio.
At the studio, yes. But having some stuff where some fun things where it's like, okay, hey, we're live from right outside of the Alamo. We just got done watching Halloween Kills or whatever.
Yeah.
Or hey, we took a trip to Orlando and I don't know how we're gonna pay our rent this month or our mortgage this month, but we're here and you know we're doing Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets and you know or we're just doing Harry Potter in general or you know, hey, we're at GalaxyCon, you know, we have no fans because no one knows who we are.
Well,
but maybe that'll change. I mean, but stuff like that, you know, just being able to get out of our comfort zone a little bit and doing stuff as a group and doing fun things like that. I like to travel too. You mentioned Europe earlier. Let's do an episode from Europe. I can't.
National anthem.
100%.
Yep.
Euro trip.
Yep.
Yes. That's why, like, I wrote that down too. Was one of mine. Like, I wrote a couple extra because I knew we'd probably talk about some. But even like just going to a Comic-Con together, not planning so much to be like, we're gonna do a podcast from there, especially not the first one, but just to be able to go and, you know, dress up and enjoy that moment together. And sure, shoot video clips and interview some random people and talk to people, not necessarily making it all about having a podcast episode.
Right.
And that's, you know, I think that goes a little bit in hand with how Eric talked about before, like what media and actually growing beyond just a podcast where it would be us just hanging out and interviewing people and taking pictures together, taking pictures with crazy things.
We are live here with JCW Frank at GalaxyCon.
Yes, we're paying him $50 to come and talk to us real quick.
You could definitely do that.
We're also getting an autograph out of this because you know that's what we really paid for.
We got to pay $80 at that point.
Or no, we're live here with this Rupert Grint lookalike. So Juan, Lavender Brown, what's she like? Anyway.
Oh my gosh. I feel like Ian Somerhalder just walked past me. That happened to me one time, legit, at GalaxyCon.
Nice.
I was like, oh my gosh.
I remember I was like,
he's so tall.
I'm not paying McFoley, but I'm standing beside McFoley right now.
Right, yeah.
And then I'm standing beside the Governor Kane right now. He's taller than I am, as I expected he would be from television.
Well, see stuff like that where maybe we don't even do a show from there, but we go and we take some videos like oh, you know, here's we edit it together and like here's our trip to you know GalaxyCon.
Yeah.
And like oh, here's our booth and oh my God, there's the guy who drew the Ninja Turtles and oh, there's McFoley. We're not paying for that.
I would pay for McFoley. But
Kevin Nash. I mean, I know he was Super Shredder, but still, I mean, you know, but
you know what would be hilarious if you managed to get a random video of me talking to someone, just like, yeah, I mean, I really love being here and blah blah blah, and then you just like walking away and be like, I met the nicest guy, and you guys are like, do you know who that is? And then you're like, no, who? And it's someone that you guys know.
Ric Flair was macking all over.
The old 72-year-old who kept trying to, you know, touch you.
That
was Ric Flair.
I was like, how's that creep over there? And you're like, you mean Ric Flair?
You should have known when he said Space Mountain was the oldest ride, but it had the longest line.
Oh my gosh.
But stuff like that. You know.
And eventually with that, though, I feel like that's a short-term goal and a long-term one, whereas I would like for us to go and have fun together at one. But I also, at some point, if we did grow it, to be able to have a booth. I don't necessarily know we would need one right away. But beyond that, a lot of the times they'll have different podcasts moderate a lot of the things to be able, not necessarily like, it's, you know, what day, but it's just like if we could connect with them and moderate one of the actual channel or
Like
panels, or whatever.
yeah.
So
Right.
Can we do the community one?
I'll have to watch.
I don't know if they have. I don't know if they'll have one.
Watch
At,
Community.
Yeah.
well, I'll settle for like Psych.
Can you just imagine that? We're on stage, like, and me and Ashby are just like, oh yeah, it's great that these people are here.
Right.
I'm like, go, go, go,
Eric's
go,
like-
go, 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 go,
I don't know
go.
any of
It's
these
like
people.
episode 10, series 3, episode 10. What happened here? And they're
So,
like,
Joe
what is
McHale,
that?
let me ask you that.
Oh my gosh, one of my favorite panels the last GalaxyCon that I went to was a reunion of most of the Rocky Horror Picture Show cast.
Mhm.
And it was awesome. I also love when celebrities are super honest. And so
Mhm.
someone asked Barry Bostwick why he does conventions, and he was like, for the money.
For the money.
I was like, yes, sir.
You were always my favorite on Spin City, buddy.
That's right. Oh,
Surprised I
man.
pulled that one out of my head. Anyway,
about you,
Ashley,
Okay, so I also had doing a live show as a goal.
look at us thinking in sync,
That's
not
right.
Backstreet Boys.
Exactly. Okay, professional photography, doing a live show. Oh, more guests.
More
Mhm.
guests.
So I feel like, obviously we can't keep adding guests as host.
You
But-
can't make everyone a host.
It would be nice to actually have more legitimate
Yeah.
guests. I just sort of like stayed. You couldn't get rid of me.
Mhm.
But I
wouldn't want to
really
know.
like the dynamic of bringing in, because I think not everyone can be an expert at everything.
Right.
So like I could talk about Captain America all day, and I know you guys could too. But like that's my thing. Like I know about all the fan and stuff, and because
Did you do that on
like,
purpose? I could talk about
It's
this
all
all day.
Yeah, because I am
Or was that
dialed in.
That was just like natural. Like, okay.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, like at this point, I'm becoming Steve Rogers. So, anywho, but Hunter Batten, his thing is
The Guardians.
the Guardians, and I know that Chris Rhodes has something that he's really passionate about,
Video
and
games.
yeah. So I think it. Obviously, the three of us can talk about anything all day, but I like the idea of bringing in more people who could sort of like open up a specific world for us,
Mhm.
I
which
like
is
that.
really cool. So that was one of my goals.
I had that written down too. Like I said, interview/going live, which
Yes.
kind of combines it all together. But I do feel like that was one of those things. Even when Rickie came in for like the Christmas like gift episode, I liked it.
Or the Thanksgiving meal draft.
Well, that too. Like, but I just enjoy bringing him in because it's somebody from a different generation that can bring in a different viewpoint than what we could on a certain
Right.
topic and stuff. And so I'm totally down with that. And even I wrote it down to get to a point that we have enough reputation with us that we could contact some celebrities to do phone interviews with.
Mhm.
Not saying like, oh, we're big famous, but no, like, because a lot of times they will. There's,
Right.
you got to be respectful of their time, and you've got to do it, within reason. But the same way that if
Can we
we're
get 3 hours of your time?
but the same way to be able to, because we haven't even done that. We've never done anything with video calling, and it's always been we'll figure that out.
Right.
But we haven't. And it's like, so that's a
Right.
goal to do.
Yeah.
Because even with Chris, where Chris has wanted to do stuff, Chris lives in Burlington. So it's like,
Right.
I said we go travel to him and do
Road
one
trip.
and do
Road
one
trip to
from his
Burlington.
place of employment.
yes, that's the
Yeah.
safe way to say that. So yeah, I'm fine with that. And he would be too. And the same way with this new thing I'm talking about buying, we would be able to do that. The
Cool.
same way I was saying about the
Road
set,
trip.
come out of movie theaters, come and do all that, we'd be able to do that and travel a lot easier, and be able to do things.
We'll
instead
bring
of-
Rickie so he can drive.
Yeah. But
I can
anyway,
drive. That's fine.
but finally hooking it up and doing something like that where we could have phone in interviews, have the other, and even just, right now we have some of you guys on Facebook Live that tune in and, say some things, and sometimes we can read it. I can't because it's all the way across the room.
Right.
But,
LASIK. That should be one of our goals.
but yeah, that, and just to have like call-ins, like set up a number that all of a sudden we'll have. It's like, you want to call in during the episode?
That's
Fine.
one of the things. Like Podbean has an option where you can do
Mhm.
call-ins, like you put out a number or
Mhm.
whatever, and it would. But we never figured out how to use it. We're going to use it for the Disney Pixar bracket or whatever, and we just never
Right.
figured out how to use it.
Also, I just realized I made it sound like I didn't want Rickie to come. I have control issues when it comes to driving. That's all I
Gotcha.
meant. I have to be driving the
You
car.
can drive there.
Okay.
I don't think you'll drive back.
We'll get a van. We need a what van.
Like the
Yeah.
like the Scooby-Doo mystery. Yeah.
Yes.
scene.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Also, Hunter Batten just joined. He missed us talking about him for 30 whole minutes.
Yes, 30 whole minutes. And it's funny you mentioned it. that like Hunter would want to go on the Guardians of the Galaxy. Jordan Ederson mentioned this week that if we did the Matrix, he'd want to come on. And I told him I think we were doing like Rookie of the Year at some point this summer, like as our baseball movie, because we did the Sandlot last year and baseball.
See, that's perfect. I know nothing
and
about those.
Jordan's like, I want to go on that week. I was like, well, that's probably the week that Ashley probably wouldn't be on because she,
right?
I don't think she would want to be on that episode.
John Etheridge tried to get me to watch The Matrix one time, and I was just like, I don't get it.
If we do, and I'm glad that Hunter's here now because I can't see what he said.
He says, I'm here.
Hunter,
and he's a top fan.
Top fan.
Who gave him that badge?
he just earned it.
He just earned it. Honestly.
Hunter, I'm glad you're here. Talking about The Matrix.
Yes.
I've seen it one time.
Me too.
Never seen it.
It was at Hunter Batten's house, and he sat beside me and had to explain the entire movie to me as it was happening. Not like the overwhelming person that's like, no, let me tell you. He's like, no, Hunter, what's happening here?
I don't understand.
Hunter, why
I don't
are they doing
understand.
this? And so Hunter literally walked me through The Matrix as we sat and watched it. I don't think I ever saw the rest of them.
So, I've seen like half of the movie, and I don't get it.
So I've only seen the third one because Ryan Fitzgerald was going to have like a Matrix like marathon one day at his house, and he invited. He was dating Ashley Barnes at the time. He invited Randy Fowler. His sister Melissa was there. Ruth Ann was there, and he invited me. Me and Ruth Ann were dating at the time, and I was like, "Well, I got to work at the pool that day. I'll come when I get off." So they watched the first two movies. I showed up just in time for Matrix 3.
That's like watching just Return of the King.
Yeah. Well, funny you mentioned it. The only Hobbit movie I saw was the last one. So.
No.
I got dragged to the movies on that one. I was like, I've never seen the other two, but you probably don't need to see the other two. And I was like, well, I was off the whole time. But it was a good movie, don't get me wrong. But
who told you probably didn't need to see the other two?
Adam Simpson and Kevin Simney. Anyway,
Liars.
Yeah.
Liars.
But yeah, so that was my only experience with The Matrix. Was I showed up right at the end of Matrix 2 and then watched all of Matrix 3 in Ryan Fitzgerald's house, not knowing anything about the other two movies.
I think Hunter also chimed in with a lie! Exclamation point.
LOL.
Oh, LOL. Okay.
Yes. So.
Oh man.
Yeah,
okay.
or was that it?
I haven't gone.
That's what I was-
Did you go?
Have you gone for your last third one?
No. Have you gone for your last third one?
No. Have you gone for your second one?
I've gone for my second
Okay.
one. Second one was
Try back
traveling.
at third.
Maybe was that me? Was
Yeah,
I
you just did the interviews.
Okay.
So
Cool.
number 3 for Kyle, Mr. Rickie.
Okay. This one's more of a fun one. I know that I have some other ideas, but we'll kind of just save those for whenever we talked the other night about getting together and like really digging into how to make things better and start putting things into motion.
You mean diving deep?
Yes, deep
Deep
diving.
dive.
There you go. That needs to be on at least something, on a button or a sticker or something.
Yes.
Roll my eyes in perpetuity here.
But you mentioned it, but I'm really serious about it. I would like for us to somehow within a year or two plan a trip to Universal Studios and go to Harry Potter World.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm down.
And
down.
I say that like I feel like it's a perfect way if we choose a way ahead of time where we can plan something out. We go ahead and plan.
Summer 2021, y'all. Go ahead and start saving now.
Well, we start paying now. Like, I mean, you can start doing anything. I would suggest waiting a little bit later so it's not a billion degrees in Orlando, especially if we're wearing cloaks.
We'll go in October.
Okay. I like legitimately one of the best times to go is Thanksgiving.
November 2021, y'all.
Because not a lot of people are there and it's cooler.
We went at the very beginning of December. We went to Disney World last year.
We can watch Thanksgiving dinner.
It's so much nicer.
Operate on our table.
I literally said there, I said I would never come back, not in this time period, because it was so much nicer. But it gives us plenty of time to book that, look into it, and do that.
Yeah.
Even if things are happening and things are expensive, it gives you plenty of time to start paying on something, so it's not killing your budget.
Right.
But
or
also
just start saving right now.
Yes.
And plus it's a lot easier when you split things 4 ways.
Yeah.
And
3 ways.
However we split it, like
we'll split it a certain way. I'm sure. 1 way, 2 ways, 3 ways. I don't know.
We'd split it 3 to make sure it's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy that's like, oh, my wife's coming, well, she gets to split it as well. It's like, no, that's not how math works.
That's fair.
Well, no, like whatever's easiest for everybody. No,
We'll
I said that backwards.
You said it backwards.
I said that backwards. That's not what I meant. If she's coming, we would pay for her. Like
she would pay her way.
Yes. Sorry, not good with that. But my idea with that too is if we're planning that far ahead, you can also plan out Harry Potter reviews between now and then. So that way it gives us
that
time
can be our big thing next year
to really get excited about Harry Potter.
Yes.
That leads up to us going. Now, sure, Universal Studios is not going to let you carry podcast equipment in. They're not going to want you filming video there, but you can film on your phone and just have fun and just do things like that.
We'll have iPhone 13 by then.
Yeah. So, that's a big thing. We're not going to sit down and probably do like a podcast in the middle of there. But it leads up to just a giant experience of us, and we could put out a whole YouTube video of just us there.
This was our week at Harry Potter World, y'all.
Yeah. So like, I just feel like it'd be something cool to do to get everybody excited about. First off, because I did go a couple years ago, and I regretted once I got home that like I hadn't watched and really got into it before I went. Because I'd already seen it before and I'd read all the books and I was really pumped. But there was a time lapse there where I didn't, and then I was there and I didn't enjoy it as much as I would have.
Right. Also, if you think about it, we could, like 2 or 3 birds, one stone, because Universal has Harry Potter World, but it also has Marvel World,
Yes.
and it also has Jurassic Park.
On Jurassic World 3 comes out next year too.
What? Yay!
Erica's a big Jurassic Park person. So
Erica loves Jurassic Park. Oh my gosh, I love Jurassic Park.
And I'll be honest, like I'd never been to Universal Studios before until then. That's why Erica did it for when I turned 30. We went. The crazy part is the fact that Disney owns Marvel, but all the Marvel stuff is still Universal because they own the rights to that stuff.
Yes.
I literally stayed in that land, just walking around and feeling like this is amazing.
Yes.
Didn't they do Simpsons World too?
Simpsons is there too, yeah. But just being there, like the whole Marvel section, like the Hulk ride is there. Knowing that
the Hulk ride is so good.
The Hulk roller coaster is the best roller coaster.
It came out my senior year when we were there for grad bash.
Ever. I've ridden that roller coaster over my lifetime, probably like 20 or 30 times. It's amazing.
You gotta get in shape.
It's amazing.
Right. So we
used to go to Universal a lot when I was growing up, and then we stopped going. And the last time I was there, as an adult, like a few years ago, to go to Harry Potter World, the one thing I wanted to do was still ride the Incredible Hulk roller coaster, and it was closed that day. And I almost cried, like a full-grown adult, crying under the roller coaster, like just watching, looking up, watching. Like, it's my favorite.
I feel like we should have the day there where it's like, okay, this day we're dressing up as Harry Potter. This day we're dressing up as superheroes because they still
our suitcases are just going to be full of cosplay.
Yes, but like Wolverine comes running out. Storm
as you do.
Cyclops and Storm and Wolverine, they all come running out dressed up. Spider-Man.
Yep.
The Spider-Man ride was awesome as well.
Yeah,
the Spider-Man
I was going to ask if that's
fun.
still up, the Amazing Spider-Man ride.
Isn't that the Doom Tower?
Oh.
Yes, it is the Dr. Doom Tower, yes.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the Fantastic Four car is still there. So it's like,
that's
this is a business trip. There's just a lot of promotional pictures and video that we're getting there.
100% tax write-off.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm also like jealous because if you went multiple times in your lifetime, it means you went during the Nickelodeon era at some point in your life.
Correct. Yes, my dad was on Double Dare.
Oh.
But not one of the episodes.
We found someone to interview.
Yes.
Ernie had to catch things in the giant pants.
Take us back to our childhood.
He did not get slimed though, and it wasn't.
We brought back those pants.
It wasn't one of the episodes that they aired. It was like it was almost like an interactive ride where you could go into and be a studio audience member, and they would take you through like what an episode would look like, and then they would have volunteers from the audience. And my dad was on Double Dare.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's our version of Rickie playing music with Tim McGraw.
Yeah. Like
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to show you Tim McGraw's boots when we go back in the living
they're
room.
in the living room.
Amazing.
Yes.
Ricky stole.
Yeah, Ricky stole.
But
we'll let him tell that story.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know. Whenever I went, that was the saddest moment for me. It was just staring over there and seeing it all gray, and like where the Blue Man Group stuff is now too. But it was just the building versus like the slime tower's not there. Just the 90s colors to me are all over that building back again, where it's like the greens and the blues and the random triangles and shapes and random things like that. Like I've spent hours on YouTube just watching guys and people like sneak in there and like go through where a lot of stuff was still set up just as it was at some point.
Right.
Where the halls were still, I think they've since changed all that. They've finally gone in now and like done that, but there was still like stuff all over the walls and everything else like painted just like the 90s and stuff. But
yeah.
That's cool.
We did, so I feel like I have to explain myself because that sounded really bougie. Like, I was there every year.
No.
I've been there all the time. I'm there now, actually.
I'm there now, actually. No, so my grandparents in the 80s, I guess, did that whole, like, timeshare thing.
Right.
As you do. If you're, like, a couple near retirement age in the 80s, you buy a timeshare. And the timeshare was for Orlando. And so they had a timeshare, and so we had a place to stay if we went down, and we would drive, and they had an RV conversion van. So it was literally cheap for us to get to and cheap for us to stay. And so that's why every single family vacation we went to Disney World, and then Universal Studios and all of that, because we just had
one of the biggest costs is like staying.
Correct.
Now, don't get me wrong, like I
Right.
love Disney resorts because it just adds so much to it.
Right.
But if you didn't have to pay
yeah.
that, there's a big chunk that you're not having to pay.
Right. And we stayed off, like it was a Marriott property that was near the parks, but it wasn't part of the parks. That like they wouldn't pick you up and everything. We would have to drive to the park, but we had passes and stuff because back then, you know, if you were going even once a year, but you were going for multiple days, if you would buy a pass, it was actually cheaper.
Yeah.
And so that's why, you know, we spent a lot of family vacations in Orlando.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That Harry Potter Airbnb I sent y'all the other day, was that
Yeah, that was Orlando. I know, right? Yeah, and before you asked, they sold the timeshare, so we can't jump off of them anymore.
no, that was
So
fine.
sad. I thought about it. I was like, do you have that
Kevin's
condo
maybe has a
still?
timeshare. I think it's somewhere in Florida. So maybe work something out with him. I don't
I
know.
have to figure out where it's located because we're driving like 8
Well,
hours.
well, they were going to go
this
this year to Disney, so it's got to be near Orlando somewhere.
Gotcha.
So, but
Yeah.
So that was yours. Was
Yep.
plan a trip to
Harry Potter.
Harry
Yes,
Potter.
love
Yeah,
it.
cool.
Love it.
I guess my third goal. There's like a lot of little goals that we've kind of talked about already. Like, I like the idea of like finding someone who is like really good at something and like interviewing them. The guy that I follow on Instagram, Faith, the guy who does Faith in Fandom, where he kind of connects the fandom part with the religious aspects, and he puts out all these different books and stuff. I'd like to pick his brain for like 20, 30 minutes and just, ask him questions.
I'm all about that.
Like stuff like that, like finding someone who kind of connects with what we're talking about nostalgia-wise, and whether it be someone who's like a celebrity, whatever, or someone who's just trying to make it a go of it like we are, and just doing something they're passionate about. So
He's a good resource too because he is the person that has a booth at all the Comic Cons and
Yes.
stuff. Like so.
Yeah, he would know how to get in on the ground floor.
Yeah.
good old Hector.
That sounds
Renee.
really cool because I told you one of my favorite podcasts was Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, which is very similar to that. So that sounds really, really cool.
Absolutely. Something I've mentioned, kind of like offhand, kind of jokingly, is doing like a spinoff called "What the Book," where we talk
But
about
we're not-
books.
we're not calling
We're not
it
going to
that.
call it "What the Book," but
We're not going to call
But,
it
like-
book the book either.
but like I mean,
And he's like, wait, I'm sold on that.
like I guess like
What is it? Because I need to know the idea. It's mine.
Like the idea of like going deep
Deep dive.
into like a book or to like a book series. Like I know Harry Potter's the big one, but I would read Lord of the Rings again, or The Hobbit, and we could discuss that at lengths on end. Hunger Games, stuff like stuff like that, where it's like it's got a foothold in pop culture too, but like it's the source material that we might not necessarily talk about on this podcast. Where it's mostly just pop culture, but doing a little spinoff where we talk about. And it might be like a year-long project where we talk about all the Harry Potter books or all the Lord of the Rings.
We could do like a spinoff called So You Didn't Read the Book.
Yeah.
And about people who only watch the movie. And it's like, here's what you missed if you didn't read the book.
I think
By the way, in Goblet of Fire, Dumbledore in the book wasn't
Right.
angry at Harry.
He doesn't scream like
He doesn't
a
scream.
maniac. Also, in Lord of the Rings, you don't get any of the background for like the character of Aragorn, for instance. Like
Right.
that's all you miss all of that.
Absolutely. But I guess so the goal I had in mind, like I say all those things, that wasn't those are just little things that we kind of talked about, and I do want to make them happen. But for me, this is going to be like my personal goal. Like this is for me in relation to you two and to the podcast, is for me to chill out a little bit. Give up some control.
No, you got to be yourself.
No, you're
Well, no.
yourself.
It's not necessarily not being
We
myself,
need your anger here.
but
we need your
my righteous anger.
your organization.
Well, no, not just that. I
Willing to
mean,
drive.
but being okay and comfortable with more of getting out of my comfort zone and being willing to tackle ideas. I'm not giving any real credence to what y'all said. It's got to be his idea. There is a little bit of truth in that nugget, I'm sure, but
There's like it's been on my mind for the
You're
past
just
week.
mad that I psychoanalyzed you in 50 seconds.
a little bit.
We didn't even make it to the couch.
Didn't even make it to the couch. That's right. But just this being a true team project and not just okay, Eric's in charge and y'all do what he says type thing, because that's never fun for anybody. Okay, I've done stuff like that. You were there when I was in charge of the youth.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, and I say this, and it's not to be like, oh, Ashby saved the show. Like I would 100% say that Ashby
saved the
a
show.
lot better.
I agree.
Yes,
You
but
heard it here first.
yes, Ashby saved
We
the show.
agree on that.
But we're getting just in a funk of just doing it. And and I know it showed, especially for my contributing part of it, but even more like it's just the past month, I've been more like, okay, you're slacking, do better about this, be aware that you haven't done a great job, be aware, and how do you do better, and how do you make it better? Now you have ideas, because this is that point where I'm really good, where I will come up with a lot of ideas, and then give me a month, and I probably will slack through all of it. So it's like, no, like this is the time to really put the effort in and to make it work. And
I also think it's hard to find. Sometimes you have to find that balance because you want to commit fully to a passion project, or it's not going to work. But you also don't want to make something that you love into work. And so, I think you have to give yourself grace, because there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. And I was really honest with you guys last night. I was like, what am I supposed to bring again? What are we doing? Because work's been really hard and I haven't put any effort towards the episode. So I wrote questions on my Evernotes in my bed last night. Like, okay, here's some questions.
That's why I started yesterday. It's like, I would think about things at work. Same way how you got tired. We talked about how it, just coming home from work and just feeling like nothing. And I would have these points at work by 2 or 3 that all of a sudden I'd get a lot of ideas.
Right.
And then I'd be like, man, I don't feel like writing that down.
Right.
And I just it's like you have it all here, but it's just effort, just feeling so worn out that you couldn't.
But then what happens if all 3 of us don't feel like that one week? And then, the episode doesn't come through. And it's like, okay, we gotta do better.
Absolutely. Well, and to bring it back to, I guess, and I put this in my manifesto last night that I sent out, or yesterday afternoon. The question was, are we still having fun? And I made sure to include, I am. And something I've realized, not to bring this down super serious, this is like your moment of the week where, the sad music plays and
I was just talking about going to Harry Potter World. Here we are, folks.
This is the special
roller coaster ride of emotion.
But, something I've realized over the past 108 days or so of this pandemic and whatever, me and Kyle before this were doing 2 episodes a week, and then we would take a week off or whatever. That's just how life kind of demanded it at the time, because I was working.
I think that's smart.
And that's something that we'll definitely get back to.
Right.
But something I have realized that we're doing 1 a week now. One, because we're doing hour and 55-minute episodes. Where are we at now?
You're at 135.
Okay, so we're about at 155.
This may be the first one we split into 2 episodes, from part 1, part 2.
Right.
Because honestly, my iPad's gonna hate editing. It's like
we actually split the Disney Pixar into 2 episodes, so not the first time. Anyway, something I've realized is we did 1 episode a week for my mental health. Getting me out of the house around people, because there was, and y'all, we've talked about it a little bit briefly. There has been some times, just me not being able to go to work and, everything just kind of shutting down around. It's been very depressing. Yeah. And this has been a bright spot in my week.
Same.
I want to make sure that we are keeping up the fun, and I want to make sure that my contributions to keeping up the fun is not limiting your contributions to keeping up your fun.
Right.
So.
I feel like that's all on a schedule.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
Is I want to have fun, but I want y'all to have fun too, and I want us to all have fun together. Yay!
Right.
Well, even Ashley talking about how her schedule's going to continue to get busier as things pick back up.
We'll come with.
Yeah, I'm like, your brain.
I'll take off.
Ashley's like, you're going to have to use me not being there. My brain's like, how do we still include her? That's where my brain goes. It's not, we'll just do it without her. It's like, no, okay, we'll figure out whatever.
What is the exchange rate in Montreal for Airbnb? We'll go out there and rent a place.
Ashley's in Europe,
actually.
And we'll fly out. We'll fly out one night. We'll go record. We'll come back the next time.
I'm just thinking, whatever it takes. Ashby's in another country, and we're waking up in the middle of the night to call her and do this. So.
Bonjour.
Yes.
It's it's 6 a.m. here. Well, it's midnight here.
Yeah.
Well, the big thing too is I know I want to do more with YouTube, and I know we all collectively like to grow and do different types of things with that. That also takes time, and so it's another thing of we all collectively have to look at it and say, not that we just don't do it because we don't have time to do it, but also at the same time you don't want to be like, well, everybody stop your whole life and we're going to spend all weekend doing this.
Everyone stop what you're doing. Only pay attention to this.
Yes.
No. But also you can, scheduling ahead. You find time where we can record multiple episodes. I think if we, are strategic about it. And I also think that the great thing, this sounds like a humble brag, but the great thing about including me is that I think we've proven, not just on the podcast, but in our text chain, that the 3 of us could literally talk about anything unprompted for hours.
Yes.
So if we are having an off week and there isn't necessarily a script and there isn't necessarily a topic, we can pull it out.
Yes.
You know? So I think that this idea that like there's homework or like we're like I don't know exactly what I'm doing this week or I haven't had time, you know, oh, we can't have the podcast, like we can sit down and just have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And it works. So
Well, and I feel like that's a big thing too, and I think what you're saying, Eric, too, is you're the one that likes to have and not say you in general, like doing the scripts has been awesome because it gives us, like for me, especially if it was just me and you, if I didn't have it, I was silent. And just because I wasn't sure what we were doing. Like, and so I think there's the part of it where that probably gets you more uncomfortable of like letting loose and being like, okay, well, it's not all scripted. We're not reading straight from the sheet. But at the same time, I think there's nothing wrong with having certain parts like that. But there's a big part, like you say, just sitting down and hanging out and having a themed conversation to be like, this is one thing we're talking about. It's not necessarily an entirety of it.
And that's I guess that's more of a personal, like, I guess, project goal for me. I mean, not just for the podcast, but like you know this, and you are probably learning this now. I overthink everything. Every single thing. Like we talked about earlier, how if you drink coffee, like after 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you're going to stay up all night, staying sitting. I do that before coffee, just because I'm, you know, something random will come in my head, and it's like, I can't believe 3 weeks ago I told the waiter, you too, when he said enjoy your meal. Right. Like it just comes out of nowhere. So like, when it comes to overthinking stuff, I want to make sure that my overthinking doesn't turn into overbearing. I want to make sure that when we're having, you know, these fun conversations, I want that to be intentional. I don't want it to be just like, okay, well, this is a job, this is something we do every week. But I want it to be intentional time that we spend, intentional time that we are enjoying with each other while we're doing something we're passionate about. And I'm always just concerned that I don't want to put my, I guess, like wants and needs for this to above anything y'all want or need, and let that squash your fun. So that's my goal, is to chillax.
What is that?
Max and relax, all cool.
Also, I definitely think that the scripts work, especially for guests, because having a script when I was doing my first episode was so helpful because I knew what to expect. Which is so important. But we don't have a script for today.
And it's worked out really well. It's probably going to be our longest episode. Chelsea Batten says, you all can definitely handle a free week of conversation.
I mean,
we're going to put that in the schedule. We're going to go back. We'll probably take out favorite wrestlers.
So we're going to plan the night not to have a plan.
The week we're supposed to talk about favorite wrestlers, she wasn't going to be on the episode. We're going to cancel that one and have free week of conversation.
Yes.
I'll have your script in my next week.
It's like a bingo card. We have a freestyle, and Eric's going to come up with a freestyle script. Oh my gosh! Here's the great thing though about this podcast is I'm a super versatile person in how I work in groups. So like if I get to a group project and everyone's just kind of like, we could, but you know, if you want to, and I will take charge. I'm like, okay, we are getting this done. You're in charge of this.
That's why I'm excited for this meeting we're going to have. Where like we sit down and plan.
But if someone else comes in and they're like, I have a plan, this is what we're doing, I'm like, oh, thank God someone else can take over.
See, I want to be in those groups. I was never in those groups. I was always in the, I'll do it because I want to get an A and y'all don't care.
I was have you done your part yet?
Like I was so thankful when I got to college, when I got to Barton, and one year, like the professor was like, okay, you're doing a group project, but I'm grading you individually on what y'all did, and y'all were going to talk about how each person contributed. So like me and this other girl in a 5-person group did all the work, so we gave ourselves hundreds and everyone else zeros, and it was like, it's so liberating to be like, we actually did all the work, so we're getting the product of this work.
I'm 100%.
Anyway.
So
Ashley, your third goal.
Okay. Oh no, I'm the final goal. This is
You're the final goal. Then I have then I just have a random question for the end. I mean, I know we're running this, but I had something that popped up, and
so I think we've already mentioned this a little bit, but and I definitely mentioned it to you guys beforehand. But so doing social ads and promotion, like me going in and doing, because we do a lot of that for work, and so I'm very familiar about running promotions on social media, and I think that we could really benefit from that. At a certain point, so I'm really excited.
Be the ninth commenter, and you get a free what shirt.
That's right. That's right. Just doing some like different stuff, and maybe pushing some ads into new markets and stuff like that. So
we'll try to push into Wilson County a little bit. Wake County. I'm thinking big here. Harnett County.
Whoa.
We're going all the way to Dunn, y'all.
Wild it out.
maybe Durham County.
It's my last goal. I'm good.
For me, I was thinking about, you brought back like, the beginning of the podcast, and I started thinking about podcast influences. I thought it would just be kind of cool, as an ending. We appreciate it. If you got to this point in the podcast, we're really grateful that you've stuck with us this long. But to give maybe some shout outs to the podcast that we enjoy, that maybe we like to listen to.
Okay.
And I'll go first. My favorite podcast is Binge Mode. It's run by TheRinger.com's Mallory Rubin and Jason Concepcion. They have done Binge Mode Harry Potter. They've done Binge Mode Game of Thrones. They've done Binge Mode Star Wars. And I haven't done Game of Thrones because that's just, I haven't got to the point where it's no longer relevant in pop culture that I can check it out.
Right.
I have jumped on the Harry Potter pop culture board after 20 years. And I've done a little bit of their Star Wars podcast, but they're really, really good. And a lot of the scripts or a lot of the way that I format things are done in homage. Am I using that word right?
Homage.
Yeah.
Homage.
Homage. It's done as a tribute to the way they do things.
Tribute. That's how that word's pronounced.
Also, the Rewatchables is another Ringer podcast that early on that I would kind of draw some inspiration from, especially when we were doing movies, where they'd have all the different categories, and a lot of the categories we do now, some of them are taken directly from them, some of them are some that we've come up with on our own. They're an adult podcast. They use bad language. We're a family podcast.
I was going to ask if I could recommend podcasts that aren't.
Absolutely, yeah. I would recommend both Binge Mode and Rewatchables. Just don't listen to them with your kids.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
don't listen to any of mine with your children.
Yes. So.
And I'm a mountain kid.
So Ashley.
Okay, so I've already mentioned it before, but My Favorite Murder was what got me into podcast. It's a true crime comedy podcast. And as the wonderful ladies on there like to say, that doesn't make a lot of sense to people. Murder is not funny, and it's not. But they are two women just trying to make it in the world and, have a comedic background and use humor as a way to make sense of really awful things that happen to people. And so they do a podcast every week about their favorite true crime stories, and it's called My Favorite Murder, and they do, some bit comedy with it that's really funny, and it's really, really enjoyable. So I like that one. I also like Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. And then another one that's just like that almost is Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor on Smallville. And they both interview celebrities, and it's very much the opposite of what you'll get on the talk show circuit. Right. So, celebrities are like, let me tell you a funny story, and let me tell you about my newest project. And this is like immediately like, how traumatizing was your childhood? Why don't you like your parents? Like, why do you feel like you do your own stunts and risk your own life? Do you not value your life? And just really deep. And then, the celebrities, to their credit, will rise to the occasion and just be like, I really think I've always just really hated myself. And just they'll get deep into it. And one of my favorite episodes that's just warning, very, very hard to listen to, is Dax Shepard brings his own mother onto the podcast. Wow. And they get into it in a really deep, intimate family therapy way. And it's just stripped bare about all the stepdads he had and the time she wasn't around. And it was just really good. And then his very first episode is obviously with his wife, Kristen Bell. Right. And they basically have a marital fight for an hour and a half on the podcast. And it's really, really good. So anyway, that's really good. And then the last one I'll talk about is, again, back to true crime, Dark Poutine.
Yes.
Is Canadian. A true crime Canadian podcast.
You ever had poutine, Kyle?
It's so good.
What is it?
It's so poutine is French fries with gravy. It's normally a dark brown gravy that's traditional in Canada, and then cheese curds on top, and it's so good.
I don't feel like
I've ever had it, but it's.
I don't feel like I've had it where it's probably quality.
Right, it's American poutine. Yeah. It's not the same. The best poutine comes from Montreal. It's so good. And
2022.
There you
Montreal.
go. I'll take you guys to Montreal. So anyway, Dark Poutine's really good. It's just two Canadians talking about true crime from specifically Canada. and they're very Canadian, and it's hilarious.
That's a big
It's a
time.
very friendly episode.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big time. Kyle, before you go into yours, I got an idea for a podcast episode.
Okay.
Let's bring our mothers and fathers and talk about childhood trauma.
Let's not.
Can I just like,
Let's
I
pass.
think I've ruined Eric's like,
Or
the
pass.
relationship he has with his dad. Where I'd just be like, why didn't you let him live? I wanted to make this episode and this like whole series about our childhood. And all I did was cut grass. Like, what a jerk. And Eric's like, that's how I bought my PlayStation.
That's how I bought my Sega.
And Eric's like, leave my dad alone.
Leave him alone. He was doing the best he can.
I mean, aren't we all?
Yes.
That's a mood right there.
I had to think about mine. The one I mentioned earlier, Saturday Morning Rewind. That honestly got me into pop culture, like realizing that people talked about these type of things.
Mm-hmm. And that was a revelation for me too, because you'd share it, and that was like, oh wow, there's actually pop culture, like stuff like this, like from our childhood that is popular. So,
well, like the guy that heads it up has been doing it. He's worked for a radio show, but he's been doing it for a long time now. And I feel like the past year or so, he's not been as involved because he still works a full-time job. He's a lot like us, where it's not gigantic, but for most every episode, he's doing an interview with a celebrity that was a voiceover or somebody that either was an actor or, you know, like an actual physical actor or a voice actor from our childhood that still do a lot of other things. But it's cool, like each episode, and it's family friendly, like that one is. Like he has to bleep out stuff every once in a while, but
only a family friendly.
family friendly. But it goes back where I first heard him on doing one, and I went back to the beginning and started, and I wanted to skip around like we talked about earlier about like, well, I knew about that, so I want to hear about that. But it's been like eye-opening to not, and like to listen to like people talk about things that I'd never watched.
Right.
But then I wanted to check out because of him talking about it, or the character or the act, you know, because truthfully, like voice actors do a lot of your favorite like childhood things. So if they did one thing and you don't know what that is, more than likely they at least did something else.
Yes.
So all that goes through. He's kind of broadened it where they do video game rewind too, where it's like him and two of his friends sit down and like they talk about video games from their childhood, and they'll do like top whatever. And even the Saturday Morning Rewind part, when they weren't doing that, they did a whole series of top, I think like cartoons from they went through an entire era, so the entire 80s. So they were like top cartoons of 1981, go. Or like, and they just did like top 3 or 5 they each chose, and they did it by year going up like that. And I felt like they did that with some other stuff. They did that with some video game stuff too. But it's fun to listen to. And they're usually pretty short. They're only like half an hour, a little bit more. There's that one. Let's think. I said the 9 Club earlier. Like in middle school, I really got into skateboarding to the point that I kind of obsessed over it. Where I was never really great at it, but like I got fully involved in that culture and learning about these skaters and everything else. Yes. So like
This is my shot.
yes.
Yeah.
So the 9 Club has been cool where they're bringing on people that like I knew names of, but I never.
What is this called again?
It's called the 9 Club.
Like the number 9. Okay, I just want to make sure I was hearing you right.
What it's called that for is like in
It's originally going to be like a overnight like programming, but that was taken. So
Yes.
they went with the 700 Club instead.
yes.
Right.
But what it is like in skate competitions. No, it's,
Sorry, I had to
Yes.
you
That's
just to make that awful joke that no one laughed at. Anyway,
it's all about the show itself is not about competition or whatever.
Okay.
But the 9 Club term comes from when you were scoring like on a 1 through 10. Like if you get into the 9s, it's like a big deal. Like where
Okay.
doesn't happen often.
Okay.
So like in a competition, if you get a 9.0 or 9.1, it's like, oh, they're in the 9 Club or whatever,
Okay.
because they've scored into the 9s or whatever.
So they're saying they're like experts.
Pretty much.
Okay.
But what the podcast is, a lot of it is they just bring in popular skateboarders, or just from younger ones to modern ones, and the hosts are actual skateboarders themselves too. So it's all like it's done really well. Like they were using these microphones. That's why we got these microphones. I was like, because they have a whole list on Amazon that's like, here's everything we use, and like
That's awesome.
this is what we started with. This is what we're using now, and how to upgrade from that.
Very helpful.
But they're doing it in a guy's living room, and I never knew it until like halfway through, where because they've got these bookshelves with all this stuff that's like memorabilia, but as a guest comes in, they bring some of their own stuff and kind of put it on the shelf
Ooh,
to do a
that's cool.
background history for them. But some episodes are short, and then there's been some people on there talk for over 4 hours, so like they've just gone on and on. But they start off with, how did you even get into it? Where did you grow up? What did you do? Like, so they cover their entire lives of like what's
Right.
happening. So it's just fun to listen to. And then when Chris Hart used to do the Nerdist podcast itself, I really got into listening to that. And now he does like the Idiot podcast or ID10T or whatever. But that was fun for me because same way pop culture type stuff, like Rick Moranis interviews and stuff, where you don't ever hear like that because he retired early.
Right.
Like, but to hear him talk for a long time, and like just all these different actors and actresses, the same way they're not talking about what you would see on the the late night TV shows. It's not something quick. It's literally like, what did you do with your life? What did you enjoy? Like, how did you get into this?
Right.
So a lot of like that. And honestly, the very first podcast I ever listened to, and they don't really do it as much, but Kevin Smith used to have a Batman podcast, and they still have it. But it was called Fat Man on Batman way back in the day.
And we're worried about what we're going to name the book. I mean,
Right, exactly.
Hey,
Fat Man on Batman.
Fat Man on Batman had a theme song, sold shirts.
Of course they
It's
did. It's
catchy.
Kevin Smith.
Yes, but they sold shirts, they did like everything.
Oh my goodness.
But and they still have it now, like I think it's like Fat Man Beyond or whatever now. But
Of course.
because it's grown with his co-host and stuff.
Also, he's not a fat man anymore.
No, he's lost tons of
Yeah,
weight.
he's lost tons of weight because
Yeah.
he had that heart attack.
He did. He
Or
about
something,
died, and
yeah.
now
Like
he's
a diet,
like
yeah.
vegan
Yeah, it's
straight
crazy.
diet now and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But especially for a long time when it was Fat Man on Batman, he would bring in just people that somehow
Right.
worked on Batman, either in comic books or cartoon artists. Like he had Stan Lee on there, and like this didn't have anything to do with Batman,
Right.
but still like
But it's Stanley.
yeah.
It's the exception to every
Yes. So like, you go through all these like long things of just either people, that had voiceover actors from the animated series, or they had people in the movies, and it grew from that because at some point you kind of run out of Batman people to interview and talk about.
Right.
And we talked about the Fantastic Four the other week, about the new one that came out that bombed. I remember he was interviewing that guy like 3 weeks straight as that was about to come out.
Josh Trank, is that his name?
I think so.
Yeah.
He interviewed him, and so like he wasn't really Batman related, but it was in that world, and so he was talking
Right.
to him. He interviewed him 1 week, kind of about him, and then about like what's coming, because there was a lot of bad review and bad stuff coming out. So he was
Right.
like, the movie wasn't out yet, so like he had him on, and then the goal was he was going to see it, and it was going to come out, and he was going to come back. I don't know that he may have come back, but it was one of those things that, like,
Poor
like-
guy.
but Kevin Smith
so
like tried his
typical.
best, like as happy as he is.
Talking.
Like as happy as he is with stuff, like he tried his best to like level that movie up a little bit
Right.
until it finally came out, and he's like, I don't know what happened to that thing, man.
Well, the thing is, the director, Josh, I think it's Josh Trask or Trank or whatever his last name is, like.
He came out and like he hated it before it even came out.
He was like, the studio did this, the studio did this, but now he's like doubling down on like, if they would let me do what I was going to do. I mean,
Right.
like, that's always the excuse that I hear from like the Snyder Cut in Justice League. It's like that's a big thing, and it's like
I think they finally Kevin Smith finally brought him back,
Okay.
but it was like, so what happened, man? Like what happened here? Like,
I'm
type
just a
deal.
little upset with like Disney. Like they started releasing non-Disney Marvel movies on their on Disney Plus now, and the first one was that awful Fantastic Four movie. Like they haven't done any of the X-Men movies up there yet. It's just that one. It's like,
Hunter said Kevin Smith is the greatest because he also really loves Jay and Silent Bob,
Mm-hmm.
and he said release the Trank cut.
At some point, I'm going to sit down and watch it just because it's there and it's not costing me anything.
We'll do a reaction video to that.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm a big Michael B. Jordan fan, so I want to watch it anyway. Because I think Michael B. Jordan's, at least one of the top 3 Michael Jordans that I've ever known. So,
Right.
But
he's fantastic.
I'll cut it there. Like honestly, like same way anything Kevin Smith, you're gonna listen to it. That's definitely adult rated.
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure random one is we would listen to Hollywood Babylon that he does. Definitely don't recommend anybody that knows me for anything to listen to that one. Otherwise, but like for long trips that Erica and I have,
Right.
it's very like some of it's very crude, but some of it's just funny, and it's just
That's
what's
why
happening.
I used to listen to Last Podcast on the Left, and it was so good. They're really long episodes, but they get really deep into stuff. Like they'll have multiple episodes on one topic, and it's some supernatural stuff, mostly true crime, but they're really crass. I mean, it's like three or four dudes in a room being dudes.
He's
So,
a dude. They're
right.
all dudes.
Yeah, they're all dudes.
I get that reference
They
now.
act very dudeish.
Yes.
So that there's a hard E for that one.
Cool.
There's another reaction video. I was just watching all that clips with Eric. Knowing that they still don't know
Yes!
if it works. So like,
Oh yes.
I was thinking, again, random thought, but go back to something, and I know we still got like social media shout outs that we probably need to speed through, so sorry, social media people. But like, taking the show back on the road. Like you're talking about getting on the road with Erica. We listen to podcasts, whatever. We can do reaction videos to us listening to other podcasts. But I also thought last year, me and you saw Aladdin with Erica at the drive-in theater. How cool would that be? Like just to do something out there.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Like maybe like a pre-show, like before they. Yeah, I don't know. I like the travel.
I see that. We
same.
do a pre-show, and then we do the review while Erica's driving us home, or Ashby driving us home since she wants to drive.
Eric, wake up!
It's your turn to talk.
What?
I can't read my script in the dark.
I can't read my script with the wind flapping as we drove the Jeep.
Hunter said something else. Hold on. So you do the.
Yeah, let's jump to social media.
Yep.
Social media.
On this week on social media, I did a post that had multiple questions.
All the questions.
Some of you answered just in one big response, and some answered individually. So I kind of do my best to cover at least what we're talking about.
Right.
This question was, what would you like to see in the year to come? Jordan Edgerton, as I mentioned, said The Matrix is coming back, so let's do those. I'm inviting myself on those.
Yes.
Ryan Bassesi.
I'm about to eat this brownie while you do this.
Yeah. Ryan Bassesi said,
milk.
definitely a Simpsons episode.
Okay.
Will Howard agreed to that. I remember, as soon as I heard this, I thought about Will Howard. Growing up in high school,
Never seen The Simpsons.
Will got...
They're on Disney Plus.
Will was
never going to see The Simpsons.
Fair enough.
Will was the first person I ever
That's
met to buy something online. Where I remember in Mr. Hennett's class in high school, and I look over and Will's buying Simpson action figures offline during class. So that's surprising. Will Howard, he had a whole wall in his house, his room, that was all Simpson dedicated. So Will would be a person if we could do call-ins to get Will in on that. Hunter Batten said Star Wars movie rankings, no holds barred. Then he also said that he would fight somebody regarding that. Ashby came back and said, obviously number one would have to be Rise of Skywalker.
Obviously.
I hated him so hard. He was like,
I didn't even
don't you even start.
I left that there because I was like, I don't know how to respond. I'm going to see what he does. I don't want to jump in.
The Phantom Menace. Why it's the best Star Wars prequel. An essay.
I'm very proud of Hunter though, because his only response to you was, listen up now. So he could have gone a lot worse than that. I'm very proud.
That's because he knows that I know him well enough to know exactly what was in those few words that he couldn't say.
By the way, we are scheduled to do episode 1, The Phantom Menace, this summer at some point.
Summer's passing by. We'll figure it out.
Yep.
Let's see. Michael Thompson said Space Jam episode at some point, especially since you're going to come out with a new one in the coming years at some point. Lewis Edwards said, sorry if you guys have already done it, I missed it, but I want to feel some Three Ninjas nostalgia.
Three Ninjas.
Hunter just commented and said fuming. Fuming.
Chris Rhodes said 90s and 2000s fashion and haircuts, which I think is a great idea. He said what worked and what we thought worked but didn't.
Can I just say Jinkos and Airwalks definitely worked for me?
My jelly shoes definitely worked.
Literally, that was the next line. I actually said the jelly shoes are awesome. And Ray Rowe brought up his, Jinkos. I can't imagine being parents, because I begged my parents. I had to beg nonstop to get those. And to know that they cost as much as they did, and we just drug them through the mud and stopped.
I had no idea how much they cost, and I feel bad knowing now they cost a bunch of money.
Well, the fact that you could have made 4 pairs of jeans out of one, you could have get jeans on 4 kids.
Yep.
But
especially with all that leg room.
Yes. But let's see. Chris Rhodes said he would like for us to see more video games, more discussion and lists about music, 90s sitcoms, Disney movies, just to name a few. Kevin Strickland said, I really love the concept of the Pixar bracket episodes. It would be awesome to probably use that for other topics like 90s cartoon characters or shows in general, or even for video games as well. Chris Rhodes said, I would like to see / hear Chris Rhodes as a remote guest. Self-plug.
Hey, look, you gotta do it, Chris. You gotta
force yourself on you.
That's what I did.
I included Hunter's as an overall comment because it was responded to one, but he actually answered multiple things. He said his favorite episode was Disney Pixar bracket, which he put together. And honestly, I forgot about it earlier when we were listening. I was thinking more specific type things. That was one of the funner things we did, or funnest things we did. So I would love to do something else like that. He said more rankings for the future. Some critiques, which were awesome. He said edit to trim some of the dead air out, and timestamps for topics, which is an awesome thing I need to work on.
That's really good.
He said as far as merch, he said he would like maybe a sticker or a mug. He said he has enough shirts. Favorite episode, Ashley Blood said the Valentine's Day love song one. I loved hearing all the personal stories attached to the songs chose. Chris Rhodes said, still the what versus what video game list?
Which was our second episode. And that really surprised me how many people enjoyed that episode.
Yeah.
Never listened to it.
Well, that's okay.
I was going to ask you, did you ever play video games and
I
sleep
didn't
over
even
Ashley?
like spit or make whatever noise I just did. Did I?
What, sorry?
Did you ever play video games and sleepovers, Ashley? Because that's a topic at some point this
No,
I think it's just a girl
That's a-
sleepover topic. Like,
that's a boy thing.
you just host and tell us what happened at girl
girls-
sleepover.
Well,
Well,
let me.
we turned the camera off here. Anyway,
First of all, anything you can imagine literally never happens.
I got included in
man.
some since my
I did
sister's
play
5
video
years older
games,
than me.
but
Like,
we didn't. Well, I mean, we
That's
didn't
a-
play video games at a sleepover, but I played video games. I'm not completely video game illiterate. It's just not my thing.
there's nothing wrong with that.
no. Kevin Strickle said, same here. The video game list, along with the favorite wrestling memories episode, were on the top of my list. There have been some great episodes beyond those two, though.
Two that she's never listened to.
It's okay.
Correct.
In response to merch, Ashley Blood said, of course, everyone likes buying all the things. She said that she loves a good t-shirt. Chris Rhodes said maybe. He said coffee mugs, tumblers, water bottles, coffee thermos, something like that for him. Do you ever try Surge? Ashley said, obviously, it was the best.
And look, I looked for Surge for
You did.
tonight, and it just couldn't find
It's
it.
not there.
I probably should have went on Amazon and found like a 3-year-old bottle of it.
Yeah, you can still get like clear Pepsi on Amazon.
Oh wow!
Bananas. I
If you're willing to
wouldn't
pay
get
for it, then
Yeah.
Well, that's how things work. Del Radford Jr. said yes. That was it. Thanks,
yes,
Del.
I drank Surge. Yes.
Appreciate
Yes, he literally answered the question. Laura Daniels Davis said, of course, the Burger King in Kinley had Surge, and it was my go-to. You were talking about that earlier about
Yeah.
it just being a fountain drink.
Yep.
Mhm.
Holly Lanks Matthew
Yeah,
says,
Burger King.
my teeth feel fuzzy just thinking about it.
Oh,
Yes.
Chris
For
said yes,
real.
gross.
Yep.
I asked if we should get a TikTok. Ashley said only if you promise amazing dance moves,
We
which we
should
probably
not.
will not do
We
that.
should-
I'm not in favor of a TikTok.
I think we would cause trouble for ourselves.
I
A
think
lot
I'm-
of trouble for ourselves.
I think I'm way too old to be talk ticking.
Chris said not too old and busy for that junk.
Yeah, I agree.
Mad facts.
Instagram,
Truth. Hashtag truth.
Hashtag.
Laura Daniels Davis also commented on Instagram, but she said, my favorite episode is still the wrestling episode. I know most
Surprises me. I mean, Laura coming with the surprising.
said, I know almost nothing about wrestling. Also, I love the Office episode. I hope there's more of those in Harry Potter 2. Can't go wrong with a good Harry Potter episode or several.
We're gonna have several.
Yes.
We're having a whole spin-off of
Yes.
Harry Potter
Yep.
called "What the Harry."
What
What the Harry Potter?
what the Harry what? Also, I think it'd be cool to hear from special guests for the lack of better term.
That sounds horrifying.
Turn my mic off now.
Please.
I will finish off this episode.
Pull that down.
And also, it's always fun to hear what fans have to
Sometimes,
say.
okay, it's past like 8:30. My filter turns off. So
Mine's 2 a.m., so we're still good for a while. After then, we don't need a mic near me. It's always fun to hear from what fans have to say, which would be awesome. You mentioned that earlier, Ashby. It said, you two and your team are doing great. Keep it up, guys. With smiley face.
I like how she's put you two in your team.
Well, Ashby's growing into our team. It's growing into threes now.
It's us three in our
I
team
mean,
now.
I think that's fair. Like I keep saying,
Quit trying to weasel
Stop trying to
yourself out
quit.
of this.
You're here for good. In
I'm
fact,
just-
we'll quit first, and it can be yours.
I'm an add-on. I'm not. I just.
Trying to think of a good analogy here to like make it sound. I don't know.
I don't
You're
know.
Ron and Harry, and I'm Hermione. Like you guys were friends first, and I just kind of like showed up and bossed you
But
around.
Hermione was the best one, so I mean,
That's true.
So we're Harry and Ron and Hermione. I repeat.
Yes.
Oh, man.
That was it.
who's
Thanks.
Luna? Just out of curiosity.
You're just like, can I please? No.
Scooby.
Yeah.
Who's Luna?
It's Ricky's dog. For those who don't know.
We need to update the Full House video to include Ashby. We need to do more.
Yeah, I got to figure out.
That's
what I'm
more
gonna be doing
YouTube
in that.
things.
Yep, that'll be one of our YouTube. So that was a lot of fun putting together. I should have mentioned that in our memories. Was literally taking
That was
You can
really
edit
cute.
things.
Watching it was a lot of fun.
taking random videos of us doing stupid things.
Well, I'm not
It was
lying.
great.
This isn't a slack on you. I was just you did a lot better than what I was anticipating. Because I just figured it was just going to be some quick things and stuff thrown together.
No,
But it actually
Rose
looked really good.
above the
Yeah.
expectation.
I literally went and downloaded the Full House font for that video.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. It's like you got excited.
I illegally downloaded the Full House theme song.
Go-
I mean, excuse me. I downloaded the Full House theme song. Let me rephrase that.
Wait a second.
Don't worry. That word was said at minute mark for hour 200, 2 minute, 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 30 seconds.
Maybe our
So
longest episode.
nobody's probably
that's
listened that long to
appropriate.
hear
It's
that
the
this was illegal.
anniversary.
So, I do think part 1 and part 2 is probably necessary. But
I don't think we're coming out with one whole part.
I'm just
Look,
saying.
I
editing
listen to
was-
podcasts all the time that are 2 hours long or more.
Well, I'm not saying split it in weeks. I'm just saying, like, here, take a breath, go to the bathroom, come back. Here's what we were excited about last year. Here's what's in this.
I'll record an intermission.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It's like
You're
Titanic.
listening
You're
to
just
the What
taking
the
one
What
episode.
podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
And now for a word from one of our sponsors.
Yeah.
Please take the podcast out, rewind, and put in the new one.
Be kind.
Be
rewind.
kind. Blockbuster.
Oh, I miss Blockbuster.
That's an episode. Put it down.
Oh yeah, Blockbuster.
If you're going to Blockbuster on a Friday night,
memories.
what 3 movies
What
are
movies
you
are you looking for?
Spice World.
Usually, when it was me hanging out with
Don't
Trent
tell us
and-
now. This is the thing.
Well, I'm not going to tell you, but
Eric's like, oh, a great episode? Let me tell you now.
Spice World.
the cheap DVD section where you get 4 for $20.
Oh man.
Anyway, we could also do some quotes from The Last Blockbuster on Twitter. Because there is a Twitter account called The Last Blockbuster that's actually still open in somewhere like in Oregon. And it's...
Is it like Anchorage or something? Maybe it is Oregon.
It's somewhere
West
northwest,
Coast.
yeah. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we probably can't quote anything they say.
I mean,
But
Travel. We'll go to the last block.
We'll just-
Write it down.
there we go. We're traveling to The Last Blockbuster.
leave it out.
Anyway, is that everyone we have on social media?
It is. I think for our bleeping, when we get to that point, Ashley just records a nice what?
What?
And then so it's just like every time, what?
What?
What? Say what? Okay. Do y'all want to wrap this episode up since we're
Yeah,
near the
please
end?
do.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you joining us for the What the What podcast. A big thank you to Rickie Liles for still letting us stay in his spare bedroom / studio, even though it's past 8:30 at this point.
I'm waiting for him to come in. It's a work night!
Go to
I think
bed.
he's off tomorrow, but anyway, we really appreciate him for everything he's contributed to the show, Tim Hutchinson as well, and thank you to all the listeners / viewers / social media commenters for all of your feedback as well. We hope that you enjoyed our discussion as much as we did, and that you're as pumped and thrilled about the year to come for the What the What podcast. Next week, we jump back into the Running the Infinity Gauntlet saga with Iron Man 3. Super excited about that, I guess. I mean,
Want to know something funny? I think that's the only Marvel movie I own on DVD.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't
That's
see
the one
it.
you selected.
That's the one.
We were going on an anniversary trip. I'll save it for next week.
You were close.
Yeah, save it for next week.
You were close.
Wow.
So we appreciate y'all joining. Until next time, stay as cool as the other side of the pillow. And on the What the What podcast.